It is dubbed the world's best college weekend, but for the next few hours, the parties are put on hold while the town of Bloomington and the community of Indiana University feast its eyes on Bill Armstrong Stadium and the 67th running of the Little 500. It's 200 laps and 50 miles where we find our one Little 500 champion. Will it be a fraternity that captures the crown for the third year in a row, or will it be an independent team for the first time since 2014? The trophy is up for grabs in a wide open field. Hello and welcome to the broadcast. I am Josh Eastern, joined by former IUSF race director Jordan Bailey. Jordan, it's great to have you here with us today.
So happy to be back to Bloomington during the month of April. April is racing here in Bloomington, and we've been doing it since 1951. 67th running. Wide open field, top 10 teams that qualified. Everybody has an opportunity at winning, led by the SAEs and Joe Krahulik with Sigma Alpha Epsilon through lap number 1. Who do you like, Josh?
I really like Sig Ep there in the 5 spot. They're a really good team, very experienced team as well, as you see the teams getting ready there to take their lap around the track. It should be a wide open field. What are we really looking for in this race today?
You know, we thought that weather was going to play a factor. Up until today had been predicting rain, but we are clear racing and happy to be here with the teams in the field. Sig Ep is certainly a favorite. They have a former Little 500 champion. 2015 was the last time that they won. Definitely an experienced team and deep. In addition, that whole first row with Sigma Alpha Epsilon, Cutters, and Beta Theta Pi leading it through the first turn.
Yeah, should be very interesting as well. And also in the 8 spot is Black Key Bulls. They did not have a great qual time, but yet they are still in a very good position to make some moves in this race. What do you see from them?
You know, they were awarded the white jersey as our Spring Series champions. Definitely one of the strongest teams in terms of fitness coming into today. They had 5 guys come through in the top 12 of the individual time trials. They put 2 men in the finals of missing out. And as we see them on the track lighting up, they were first by 20 seconds in team pursuit on a windy condition day just like today. So it would be interesting to see if they can put some separation between them and the rest of the field before we get to lap 200.
Yeah, that second team in team pursuit was CSF. They are in the 12 spot today. It rained yesterday during the women's race. It's a little bit windy here today, but we should have no rain. Should just be a nice cloud cover. Should be fairly good conditions for a race today. What do we expect from the weather?
You know, again, the last 4 weeks have been in that 60, 70, 80 degree range, and because as high as 80 as on Wednesday, because of the rain that came to Bloomington over the last 2 days, our temperatures dropped and we have a high of 50 today. A little bit of a strong wind, but I think the guys are ready for it. They're amped up. They've been training, and you know, it's just one more thing that they're gonna tackle and be ready for today.
Should be a fun race. So we're gonna send it down to a fun guy himself, Eddie Cotton. He's down on the field. How's it going, Eddie?
Thanks, Josh. I'm super excited for this race because you obviously know how wide open of a field it is, but the weather is absolutely amazing. We've got 55 degree weather and 10 mile per hour winds coming in from the northeast, which is absolute perfect weather for a race day. I spoke to Charlie Hammond before the race. He said the wind is going to have no impact on him, and he's got 110% confidence in Black Key Bulls and their team. Back to you, Josh.
Thank you very much, Eddie, for that report. Yes, it should be a very interesting day today. Black Key Bulls, we talked about them as well, but there's some also teams. Cutters is a team that have kind of been under the radar a little bit, but yet they are still in that 3rd position.
Certainly, they came out and they qualified in that front row. Cutters is our winningest team in Little 500. They had a streak of 5 wins in a row from 2007 through 2011, but it's been a drought. They have not won since 2011, and I can guarantee out of that pit in the turn 3, they're going to be hungry and they're going to be throwing some punches over the 200 lap feature today.
Yeah, they are one of those independent teams, as you see them on the screen right there, qualified in the 3rd position behind Beta Theta Pi and SAE are pole position, but Sig Ep is a team very experienced as well. Sam Anderson in this race, he was one of the top qualifiers as well in ITTs. What should we see from Sig Ep today, do you think?
Again, Sig Ep, a recent champion in 2015. They have the formula figured out. They've done it recently. They have a team, all solid guys, 3 seniors and a sophomore from the SIG Ep house. Third win overall in 2015, and they're pitted on our front stretch straightaway. So I would see them to be mixing it up, ready to go for today's feature.
And throughout this whole race process building up to the race, a lot of IU sports media students have been putting together great stories from this race. That's one of the great parts of the Little 500. One of those great stories comes from SIG Ep, and Daniel Cox, he's an influencer both on and off the track. His involvement with Be The Match, the National Bone Marrow Registry, has provided him with not only a cause to ride for, but also a memory. Nicole Christine has more.
I was worried for the life of someone that I didn't even know. Be The Match is the National Bone Marrow Registry, and what the foundation does is it finds stem cell and bone marrow donors for patients with blood-borne diseases like leukemia, lymphoma, etc. So I donated March 21st, 2014. So yeah, that was a day I won't forget. I got a letter from the recipient of that during finals week saying the donation had been a success and she had no more signs of cancer. Which, reading that for being like a 19-year-old kid, like just worried about passing a chemistry class or something like that, it just kind of gave me a whole new perspective on life and kind of absolutely changed me. The following year, I got to meet the recipient. I met her really close to my 21st birthday, so it was really cool to have that experience. And from there, we formed like this relationship to where we would work together on these projects with Be The Match. Last year, she got to watch the race she streamed it online. And I guess because of the triathlon that I did and because of Little 500, cycling had just been something that we kind of like had. Like that was kind of a symbol, an athletic symbol for me of like my whole journey with Be The Match. Unfortunately, a couple weeks later, she passed away unexpectedly. She had a DVT in her leg. I found out like walking out of a final, and that, I don't know, is a really hard hit, and it continues to be. She's the reason I still ride. I mean, that's really made me buckle down for this year and really want to go after this race, just because it's just something there that I can relate to and tie back to her and my whole journey. It's been something really cool.
Really nice story there from Daniel Cox, and really just this whole Little 500. There's so many good stories to be told throughout this race with all these riders.
I think that highlights an excellent main point of the Little 500, talking about the importance of philanthropy, because after all, that race is what it was founded on in 1951, and it remains true today. All the gate receipts here, all the people in the stands that come out for it, that turn up for it, they are supporting scholarships for the students here on the Bloomington campus.
Yeah, Daniel Cox, as you see him there on the screen, he is a senior, a biochemistry major, and SIG Ep, one of these favorites today. But we're going to talk about another team right now. Eddie is down with Blackie Bulls coach Ryan Knapp.
Coach of Theta and Blackie Bulls. Now you're coming off yesterday's win in the women's race. What was that experience like after the crash, coming back from that and still winning the race?
We definitely saw our race hopes kind of flash before our eyes there for a second, but we kind of got lucky in the fact that the pack didn't really put us away. We were able to claw back in the next handful of laps, which is not always the case, so we definitely dodged a bullet. But it was special for sure.
Now, of course, you've got another big job today. Did you get the chance to celebrate yesterday?
Not much. We had a little get together at one of the family's homes last night, but my voice is already kind of on the way out, so I had to kind of choose sparingly where to use my resources. So yeah, not much celebration yet, but hopefully after today, maybe I'll have a little more reason to celebrate. But
now you guys have plenty of momentum coming into today, winning the spring series, getting that white jersey. How important is that momentum coming into this race?
The momentum is great. It's always good to have some positive experiences to build off of. But as far as the white jersey is concerned, it means nothing, you know. Everybody forgets who won the white jersey as soon as the race is over. And so that wasn't a goal of ours. It was more or less just a byproduct of the hard work and, you know, us moving towards our ultimate goal of winning the bike race. But yeah, it wasn't really something we were looking to do necessarily.
And lastly, if you pull off the win today, that would be the first coach to ever pull off the double, winning the women's race and the men's race. What's that like? What's the thought process going into today?
I mean, that's a cool, thing to potentially have on the table, I guess. But right now, I just want to do my best for these guys because they put so much effort into this over the last year, and some of them multiple years, that I just want to do my part to help them get what they deserve and what I think they've worked so hard for. And so it's not about me, that would be a cool side story, I guess. But yeah, I just want these guys to get the experience that the Theta girls got yesterday, because it's just kind of a life-changing and definitely college career-defining experience. And for a team to have worked as hard as the BKBs have, it's something that I feel like they really, it's their time to get that.
Awesome. Thank you very much, and best of luck, man.
Appreciate it.
Back to you guys.
Thank you, Eddie, for that interview. Yes, Ryan Knapp, coach of Black Eagles, could be the first to get the men's and the women's titles. But now we want to welcome in Sam Beiseisen. He's riding for 33-1 this year, also contributing to the WIOX student radio broadcast. Sam, how are you doing today?
It's my favorite day of the year. There's nothing quite like the Little 500, and there's nothing like it. It's the best day of the year.
Yeah, I mean, this is your last Little 500, I guess, as a student.
Right.
What are the emotions, I guess, going into it?
It didn't hit me until last night, walking home from the women's race. I said, man, that's the last women's race as a student. I mean, I'll be back. I'm never going to go away. I bet Jordan thought he was going to go away at some point, and he's still here. So 10 years from now, I'll still be coming back to this race.
It's something that just pulls you back over and over and over again. And what a women's race we had yesterday. The Kappa Alpha Thetas pulling it through. They were off the front for more than 30 laps. They, again, as Eddie interviewed with Ryan just a minute ago, Ryan is now a 4-time winner as a coach in the last 10 years. 1 with DG and 3 now with Kappa Alpha Theta. So it'll be exciting to see his men's debut as the helm of the BKBs.
And now we want to take a look at some highlights from yesterday's race. Theta was the Spring Series champions, and they also won the race yesterday. What were your initial impressions from this race, Sam?
Well, first and foremost, it was just nice to see a clean race throughout. Not a single caution flag. Except for early on, there was one wreck on lap 35 or so, the one that we're looking at right now. Of course, when I talk about cautions, a few of the lead teams did get caught up in that wreck. But then eventually the Thetas were able to just establish themselves as the dominant team. AOPI would eventually move up to them, make a pass late. But I mean, Theta was just the class of the field. It was nice to see the best team in the field win the race. I think that's what we saw.
Yeah, and Theta, I mean, they were in that race, and now we look at this rough exchange. This was kind of towards the end of the race, and Theta really just kind of pulled away from this point.
Just so much confidence throughout the 100 laps yesterday. And really, they didn't make any mistakes that last 30 laps when they were off the front. All of the other teams, as they were exchanging off the back and everything got into chaos, made the mistakes. And you can see just pure emotion crossing the line from the girls, the women in the sorority, and from their coach, Ryan Knapp.
Yeah, it was Kappa Alpha Theta with the win yesterday. AOPI was second, and DG, the pole team, was third. And now looking over to this men's race, as you see the fans kind of filing in, the students filing in, the teams are still practicing. What are we kind of looking for in this race today, Sam?
I think we're going to see two very distinct schools of thought. I think there's going to be people who are going to want to push the pace from the very beginning. And there's going to be a lot of other top contenders that want to keep it slow and basically get a sprint. The teams that think they have a dominant sprinter want to keep everybody together and win at the end. There's going to be teams that want to push the pace. That's two completely different just schools of thought, and it's going to be a battle to see who can control the pace from the very beginning.
Absolutely. And again, I think that wind is going to play a bit of a factor. With that, for sure, you've got those teams that want to sit in and they're going to play to the sprint. You've got the teams that are going to kind of want to stretch it out a little bit, and they're really going to want to roll and make the race hard. If you had to look to it, who do you think are some of the top sprinters in the field this year?
I mean, Joker Hulick, everything kind of starts with him. SAE, experience proven. I mean, he's shown it in missing outs. He's shown it in ITTs. He's shown it in races, even when injured last year. He was just
last year he was in 2 wrecks and had scars and blood running down his legs at the end of the race.
Imagine if he was healthy. Apart from him, Xavier Martinez with Black Key Bulls, Joe Laughlin with Beta. There's just a lot of big names in this field. I mean, it's star-studded. Everywhere you look, somebody's got a good sprinter.
And a lot of experience, a lot of senior riders from those people that you just mentioned. That plays a big part of just having that knowledge base to be able to have the confidence to say, hey, I'm going to take the white flag, I'm going to explode out of turn 2 on 200th lap and take the checkered flag for the win.
And that's where I think if we do see a pack race throughout and a sprint at the end, that's when a team like 3PH with Reed Wilson maybe comes into play. Or maybe you see Bears, guys like Riley Figg kind of go to the top of the charts. It's just going to be interesting to see what type of chess match gets played to the first 100, 125, 130 laps.
If there's somebody outside that top 10 that could kind of break into that upper 5, maybe kind of lead the race a little bit, who could you see at that?
I think Bears. I mentioned Riley Figg's name earlier. You got a bunch of experienced guys that have been around here for a long time. I think Bears could be a team that, if they hang around, they have the talent to make some noise at the end.
Certainly with Riley Figg at second place and missing out the sprinters event, he showed that he has the fast turn of speed for 1 lap, and if you're hanging around at the end and the other teams don't put you away beforehand, it's a crapshoot in terms of lap 200 when you've got that big group coming through lap 199.
And quickly, who could we see coming out on top today?
Man, I've fought back and forth with this for weeks at this point. Cutters has been asleep too long. We have not heard the name Cutters in just forever in this race. That concerns me. I like Nick Theory. Cutters is going to get it done today.
All right, Cutters, you heard it here first from Sam Bison. Sam, thank you very much. Now we want to send down to the field with Eddie. He's standing by with the Forest head coach, Hank Duncan.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with head coach of Forest Cycling, Hank Duncan. Now, Hank, what's the team's confidence level coming into today's race?
Oh, it's extremely high, Eddie. Last year, I think we're a lot stronger than last year. And then last time we were in this position on the front stretch, good qual position. We were in the sprint finish. We lost the race maybe about by a half a second, came in 5th. And this year, I really think we have 2 of the strongest riders in the race, in Joe Hunt and Colin Evans.
Now, we spoke before the race about Joe Hunt and how impressive he is. Why do you think he is so impressive and so vital to this team?
So around the race, you have so many great sprinters. But the thing that separates Joe from the rest is his stamina and his endurance. He trained every day in the summer, every day in the fall, and I really don't know anybody who would or could have trained more than he did, and that's where you build up that endurance. The spring is more fast twitch muscles, and you get that sprinting and maybe 3-4 lap sets, but Joe, he can really do that 3-4 lap set at lap 196, 197, whereas these other guys, they can do it early in the race.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Hank.
All right, no problem.
Back to you guys.
So we do look at Forest. They are a very good team led by Joseph Hunt. What can we see from them? They were kind of surprised there in that top 4.
You know, they have really built up this program the last few years, and they have consistently been on that leader's lap or towards the front of the bike race. And they, again, qualifying in that inside of row number 2, exciting team to watch in the orange. I think that that could be another one that, you know, they've never won the race before, so it could be first team ever.
Yeah, they are the last residence team as well here in this race. And now we want to go back to last year. It was won by Delta Tau Delta. Here's a recap from that race.
There were plenty of storylines going into the 2016 Little 500. Cutters were on the pole, looking to get back to the winner's circle for the first time since 2011. Delta Tau Delta and Black Key Bulls made up the rest of row 1, both teams looking for their second race victory. It was the fastest Little 500 since 2002, thanks to great weather conditions and safe riding through the first 100 laps. Things did get dicey at the midway point of the race, though, as a lap 101 crash sent last year's winner, Sig App, into the wall and took several other teams out. Sig App was able to get back into the race, but they would finish 13th. The last lap decided things, as Delta Tau Delta, SAE, and Black Key Bulls dueled for glory. Heading into the backstretch, Luke Tormelin made his move for Delts and won the race going away, beating SAE by over a second. It was Delt's second Little 500 victory. They also won it in 2012.
Yes, Delta Tau Delta did win that race last year. However, they are not in this race this year. Instead, they will be, I guess, sort of racing under the name of Jet Black. It's the same competitors from last year, just not Delta Tau Delta. They are not on campus anymore.
So, of course, they were kicked off by the university back in the wintertime. They lost the house, they lost the name, and they lost their best rider, Luke Tormelon. But they are still coached by Courtney Bishop, who's no stranger to Little 500, longtime coach of the race, and as that package just mentioned, he's got 2 wins with the Delta Tau Delta guys, and he's a really savvy coach and knows how to get to the end of the race on the leaders lap.
What were kind of the big impressions taken out of that race last year?
You know, it was a very punchy race. There were a couple of wrecks, there were a couple of mistakes that teams made, and it was really fast at times and it slowed down at times. But eventually what we saw is the 3 elite teams kind of separated themselves. So we had the Delts, we had SAE, and we had the BKBs. And Nick Hartman was leading on lap 199. Joe Krahulik made his move, and then Delta Tau Delta ended up winning it with a 30.5 second lap.
Yeah, Delta Tau Delta did come away with that win. And now we want to look. So we did have a few crashes last year, a couple wrecks. We're going to take a look at these flags this year just to kind of give you a basis of what we are working with today. Actually, we are going to send it to the anthem right now. Oh, we're going to keep going, actually, excuse me. So yes, the flags, obviously the green flag will start things off on this race. Then we get to, as we take a look at this, the yellow flag, of course, that will come up with a wreck. We didn't have any wrecks yesterday during the women's race.
Very surprising. It was the first time it has ever happened. And of course, all of our flags exactly mimic the Indianapolis 500, for which this race is modeled after. We're hoping we're not going to see a red flag, a stoppage of the race because of weather or something unforeseen. You've got the blue with the orange check through it, and that means for those lap teams, they need to move out. The white flag, of course, means 1 lap to go, and our checkered, that's the one that you want to see coming down the front stretch on lap 200.
Yes, and kind of what are those emotions when you see that white flag? It's the last lap. How do you kind of feel as a rider going into that?
You know, I was talking to our flagman, Chappie Blackwell, this morning, and he saw the Kappa Alpha Theta rider on the bike coming out of turn 4, and she just had a smile on her face, and you could see the pit erupt in just pure emotion all over.
And now we are going to send it down to the field in our nation's colors and the national anthem.
She also is a member of Sigma Kappa sorority. Please stand at this time, remove your caps as Brooke presents our national anthem.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
And watch skyward for parachutist from Skydive Indianapolis carrying the American flag and the state of Indiana flag.
welcome back up to the booth. Josh Eastern, Jordan Bailey here with you, and this is just kind of part of the pageantry of the race. Get the skydivers back home again in Indiana. It's coming up in just a second.
All the pomp and circumstance. Again, it's modeled after the Indianapolis 500, the pre-race ceremony and all the festivities, recognizing the riders and making them feel like the all-stars of Indiana University with this huge crowd here at Bill Armstrong Stadium. You can see all of the colors of the rainbow represented. The skydiver coming down just now as the people look to the sky and coming inward onto the field.
This is just all a part of this, I guess, pageantry of the race. It's been going on since 1951. And this year, another great example of what a great event the IUSF does put on here at Indiana University and Bill Armstrong Stadium.
You know, I grew up in Indiana. My family, we all attended the race, the Indianapolis 500. It was just a part of what we did. I came to Indiana University the senior year of high school, and I was a bike racer, and I can remember just sitting in the stands and seeing how IU Student Foundation puts this race on with such professionalism and has, again, all the pomp and circumstance surrounded with it, exactly like they do it up at the Speedway in Indianapolis.
Yes, you were a rider yourself. You rode 4 Blackheath Bulls. Kind of what kind of made you or pushed you to become a rider in this race?
You know, a lot of the people involved in the race, there's over 500 riders that come out every single year. Between the men and the women's race, only 264 get to ride on race day, only 4 riders per team. And a lot of them, probably 90% of them, have no prior cycling experience. A lot of them are athletes in high school, and they just want to continue that athletic pursuit, be in competition in college, and not give that up here at Indiana University.
Yeah, a lot of track stars, a lot of swimmers, a lot of endurance riders. And now we are going to send it back down to the field for another great tradition of back home again in Indiana.
Z move. Do 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 do. Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamore for me. The new mown hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight, about the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home. Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamores for me. The new mown hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana.
If you are in the infield and not wearing official credentials as a participant or official, please move in to the seating area outside of the fence. Only properly accredited personnel are permitted in the infield.
Another great tradition of back home again in Indiana. Just another one of those great traditions here at the Little 500.
Josh, I don't know how you can't get chills up your spine as the riders are listening to that, getting ready to start the race today. And you saw just a minute ago the balloon toss up into the sky. Race director Andrea Balzano told me that for the first time our balloons are environmentally friendly and they dissolve, so always a good thing here on the campus of Bloomington.
And now here's Cody Miller, today's Grand Marshal.
Riders, race smart, keep your heads up, good luck, and Godspeed. Now for the words you've all been waiting for. Racers, mount your Little 500 bikes.
A reminder to the riders and officials, we'll have 3 laps before the green flag. 2 slow warm-up laps and 1 faster pace lap. Pacing the starting field for the 67th running of the men's Little 500, the official pace car of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Driving today's pace car, J.T. Forbes, Executive Director, IU Alumni Association. He's
And now here's the first of 3 pace laps. And now you can really feel the juices flowing here. We're just nearing that green flag.
You know, these guys have, the fitness comes all throughout the year. And really the last couple of weeks leading into the race, it's just fine tuning and really developing that mental edge. You're going to be a little bit nervous as you're riding in that group, but you're waiting for the green flag to drop. And once it starts racing, then all of that nervous energy just gets unleashed.
And there in that first row is SAE. They are the pole team today alongside Beta Theta Pi. They are the 2, while Cutters will be the 3 team today.
Then in row 2, you've got Forest Cycling, Sigma Phi Epsilon, and Sigma Chi.
Is there kind of one of those teams that you could see break out in this race?
Absolutely. I think out of row 3, you'll see the Black Key Bulls move up very quickly in the white. Lambda Chi Alpha and 3PH are one of our favorite residence hall teams.
And then, of course, Jet Black, they are the, I guess, former Delta Tau Delta, much of the same riders in this race. They are still coached by Courtney Taylor. I guess it's the name of the founders. That's how they came up with Jet Black.
Going to row 5, we've got Grey Goat, Phi Gamma Delta, and Phi Sigma Kappa.
Yeah, Phi Gamma Delta, it is new this year, the candy stripe jersey. It is you write an essay and you are awarded that jersey for a winning essay. And then here on row 6, Pi Kappa Alpha is a team that could potentially surprise some people today.
Ian Kelly, led by senior Ian Kelly, great ITT time. TKE and Alpha Sigma Phi rounding out row 6.
And then there in row 7, of course, Acacia and those ghost exchanges right there. That's something very unique to this race.
Theta Chi and Kappa Sigma as they come around to the front stretch, and flagman Chappie Blackwell given the 1 to go until green. Go down a little bit farther, Evan Scholar, Sigma Pi, and AE Pi rounding out 9. Going to 10, Delta Chi, Black Ice, and Delta Sigma Pi. And row number 11 is going to be Young Life, Beta Sigma Psi, and Pi Lambda Phi.
So now here they come. The pace car, is picking up a little bit more speed.
JT Forbes, the executive director of the Alumni Association, driving that car, and he's putting the gas on to the turn 3 gate. And it's going to be let out by that green team of Sigma Alpha Epsilon, our pole team, and Joe Krahulik.
So here's they come around turn 3. We're nearing that green flag. The stands are packed. It's a little bit of a windy day here, but we should have a fun race today. The yellow flag is still up. And now here goes that green flag. Let's go racing at the 67th Little 500.
Joe Krahulik leading it through turn 3, and they slot in very nicely there. 1, 2, 3 in that qual order.
So what should we be looking for here early in this race, kind of establishing positions?
Again, your first set, it's all about trying not to make mistakes and get to the front. You can see Black Key Bulls got out very nicely, and now they're in that 4th spot as Joe Krahulik pulls off.
Oh, and we have a wreck over there in turn 3 already, very early on in this race.
And the judges will only throw the yellow flag if there's down riders, and it looks like we're going to stay green.
Looks like that's 26 Sigma Pi, 22 is down, that is Phi Delta Theta.
And there goes our yellow flag.
And we are going to have a yellow flag. Wow, that was quick.
So, yep, right there, exactly what you were talking about. We you had that bunch of riders and just an overlap of a wheel in the back, and so that's why it's important to qualify
and
up
here's the
front.
replay. Looks like somebody slipped there on the outside, coming around that turn on the outside. Looks like that was Sigma Nu right there.
And it looks like he's getting up from Phi Delta Theta.
And that wind already playing a little bit of a factor over there on turn 3.
You can see our leaders are now just setting a nice cautious pace. They're going to take the Phi Delta rider over to the medical tent and get him cleaned up a little bit. Also down in that wreck was Sigma Pi and Sigma Alpha Mu. So again, some of those teams that were more in the middle of the pack are now a little bit down to the leaders.
And of course, Sigma Alpha Mu just racing with 2 riders today.
That makes it tough when one of them gets in a wreck early.
So looks like we're going to have a couple penalties right here. They will serve those Sigma Nu and Sigma Pi, along with the 24th team, Sigma Alpha Mu as well.
And it looks like our wreck is cleaned up. Sigma Chi leading it out. So I would suspect that when we come out of turn 4, Chappie Blackwell, our flagman, we might go back to green racing.
Still at a caution just through lap 1 of this race. Did not take very long. And we're back to a green flag here as they will resume racing. And now how can that affect this pack early on? You already got a big crash. Could that be messing with some people's minds out there?
You know, it's safe when the pack is long and strung out, and when it's hitting into the wind like that and you get it bunched up, that's when the wrecks are going to happen. So I think that a lot of the teams, just for the beginning of the race, it makes it a safer race if it is quick pace going out.
And here they go around turn 3 again. And it looks like they're going to be safe right there. So we will monitor that turn over there. That was where it happened in lap number 1.
And you'll notice with our pack, it's 4 or 5 wide, and all of the people from the back of that group, they're just coming around, and it's constantly recycling through. And the safest place to be is going to be at the front of that race.
And it looks like out in front right now is Sigma Phi Epsilon, and on the bike is Sam Anderson. Made it to the semis of missing out. He's a senior.
Little 500 champion from 2015. The last one from that team, still a senior today.
And we'd have another wreck over there just before turn 3.
And I didn't get an eye on it, but that might have been more of an exchange that had gone wrong. I'm not sure. We're still under green flag racing though.
Haven't seen anything around as they come around turn 2 over there. Looks like that area is clear. It was Sigma Alpha Mu that was in that wreck right over there for the second time so far today.
Now we've got our pole team back on the front as more teams from the back continue to cycle through and establish themselves on the front of that peloton.
So here is the replay in just a second here. Oh, it actually was in the pack right there.
An overlap of wheels again. You know, these guys, they have the fitness and they're just amped up, and I think it's just some of this nervous energy that they're making mistakes really, really early. But, you know, for our contenders, I think this is good. That thins the pack out very quickly. And
another one over there as a rider goes down. Looks like that's the 21st team, Acacia, as they're running a bike over there right now. So already turn 3 is causing some havoc over there.
You know, we were talking about the wind earlier, and it's oddly out of the northeast, which these guys practice all throughout the spring, and usually you'll get that wind right on the backstretch out of the west. So it just up here it seems strong, and I think that obviously I think it's playing a factor down there in that third turn.
Yeah, I was down there on the track before the race talking to these riders, and they said it shouldn't be too big of an issue. They had practiced in pretty stern, windy conditions during the spring.
A lot of our spring series events, as we mentioned before, team pursuit, 20-mile-an-hour winds. So it looks to me we've got probably down to 20 teams in that lead group. So with less than 10 laps scored, that's a lot to be cutting off. So again, I think for some of the teams that we want to establish themselves at the front and just stay safe through this first set.
So already Sigma Chi is out in front. That is Tim Ryan, the senior. And as they fall back a little bit, Blackie Bulls. Blackie Bulls already moving up in the race very quickly, as we kind of expected.
Yeah, sure. And again, starting in the middle of row 3, pretty easy. Already 8 laps in to the front and staying safe where it's less likely to wreck.
So we have 9 laps scored so far. Already a couple wrecks over there in turn 3. Delta Chi is out front, followed by Black Key Bulls. Delta Chi out of the 30th position right now.
And they're our second winningest team. Had a dominant streak in the 1970s. Most recently won again in the 90s. Been a big drought for that house. So it's fun to see some of those traditional teams doing well and shaking it up early.
Mark Dayton, we actually might hear from him later in the race, was a part of that Delta Chi kind of dynasty, I guess, if you will.
And on our front stretch, we've got that first exchange. Lambda Chi Alpha exchanges in the first 10 laps to get a fresh rider on.
Yeah, they have chops on the side of their pant leg over there. And that actually stands for lamb chops, kind of a little joke right there.
Good play on words.
0.018 miles per hour. Just shy of 7 minutes the total time.
See, now that we've got 10 laps scored, looks like we have settled down a bit. The people that we expected to be there are there, and they're doing their jobs and riding. We've got a little bit of, what I would call the pack fodder. They're now off the back. It's kind of all over the place. So that lead group, just by the quick count, I'm not sure, but I would say maybe 18 teams up there with that lead peloton.
So it's Sigma Chi still out there, but now SAE also fighting to take the top right now.
And with these first sets, teams have to be patient. You're not going to win the race on the first set. You're not going to win the race on the first 50 laps. You just have to minimize mistakes, do what you need to do, and cycle through, keeping yourself in a good, safe position.
How much can that kind of mess with the riders' minds, though? Already we've seen a few crashes in this one, and there's just kind of been a couple mishaps with some teams from the back.
Josh, up here, it makes me nervous, so I can't imagine what they're feeling down there with the rest of the riders. So I think, I think it's helpful just to have that one get over, and we had a string of 3, it looked like, so have that get out of the way quickly. Hopefully we can have some clean racing for the rest of the way.
Yeah, so we did not see a yellow caution flag yesterday during the women's race, but we have already seen one today, and that was in the first lap of the race. So now we see 3PH taking some time at the front. They were out of the 9 position. Reed Wilson, one of their better riders. He was their top ITT qualifier.
And we see the Phi Gamma Delta Fijis ripping it down the backstretch for their first exchange.
And now on the bike for SAE is Sean Marks. He's a junior, one of 3 rookies riding so far today.
It looks like he's in the pit, ready to get out there.
They are getting ready to make an exchange in just a minute.
You can see Joe, he's kind of looking over his shoulder, looking for a way out.
He's right in the middle right there.
And you'll see during these first sets, these strong teams, these teams that we're looking out for, they're looking to do maybe 10 to 15 laps, eat up some laps for their teams. Onto the front, there's Beta Theta Pi ripping it real fast in the black jersey. And right on their wheel is our purple team of CSF, second place in team pursuit, both on the front stretch. Coming up, setting up for their first exchange.
So it looks like Krahulik is going to stay on the bike for another one, getting a little bit more separation there to the outside.
John Heinman hands it off to his teammate, Tomato Theta Pi, and he'll slot right back in. In terms of strategy and of exchanges, that's what you're looking to do. You want to establish that gap a little bit, and make your teammate work less than he has to and filter right back into the group.
So is it just trying to keep riders fresh here early in this race and save them for the, I guess, kind of the marathon, if you will?
Yeah, you're looking to not burn too many matches. You have a finite number of kind of moves that you can make with your legs, and you just want to be smart about when you're exerting that energy. So you can see they're toying around a bit with each other. Looks like 3PH now going to the outside. SAE is on that wheel of Joe Krahulik.
As Sig Epp just exchanges, Sam Anderson will come off the bike for now, and he will hand it off to another one of his worthy teammates here as we are through 16 laps scored.
And it looks like as the pack goes into 3, Joe Krahulik's coming out of 4. That's our diesel engine. He is just a beast, a former champion of ITTs, and he'll trade it off for the first time after 16 laps. They're pretty long set for some of these riders and teams. I think the BKBs and the Cutters are still in, and you'll notice that they're kind of marking each other. They are waiting, kind of keying off of one another, timing those exchanges despite being in opposite pits. And right now, you've got the green pole team of SAE. They're off the front. That's really what you want to see. Make it really easy. Make the pack come to you and catch you. Now it looks like our 2 independent teams, the BKBs and the Cutters, are setting up for their first exchange. The Cutter followed the BKB rider out as we go into the front stretch straight away.
And it looks like Black Key Bulls is going to exchange. That was Charlie Hammond coming off the bike right now.
And I think he exchanged it to his teammate Kevin Mangle of Valparaiso, Indiana.
And now speaking of Black Key Bulls, Xavier Martinez and Black Key Bulls gave up a lifelong passion for running to pursue his dream of riding in the Little 500. Here's IU Sports Media's Carly Murata with more on this unique athlete.
And coming at the finish with its first victory, Black Key Bulls.
Xavier Martinez's dream of riding in the Little 500 began in high school when he watched the Black Key Bulls win the 2014 race.
So I found their website and I emailed them and I gave them like a little bit of like an athletic resume.
And he was saying, hey, I think I'd like to ride. What do I need to do to be good enough to be a Black Key Bulls? And they were like, we never have people call us this early.
However, it was not always biking for Xavier. From an early age, track was his sport, and he excelled at it.
I was a county champ. I was conference runner-up. I had the fastest time in the state for a while, and then I ended up getting 4th in the state championships in the 1-mile run.
As a Bloomington native, Xavier grew up with the Little 500 and decided to hang up his running shoes to be a part of history as a biker with none other than the Black Key Bulls.
The way they presented themselves as a team who works hard but still knows to how to have fun, really just it clicked.
He does go into it all the way. Like when he decided he was going to be a cyclist, he wanted to be with guys who were as committed to cycling as he was.
These kids, they worked so hard to get on that track, and there could be like 10 to 12 people on a team. But there's only 4 that race.
It was this track that Xavier watched the 2014 Black Key Bulls win Little 500. And in just a short couple of months, it'll be his turn.
He's a great teammate, and he raced last year and I didn't get the opportunity to. So even though he's a year younger than I am, he's someone I can still look up to.
You build such a connection with the guys on your team who are all just focused towards this one goal, and it really is something truly special.
And a nice story there from Xavier Martinez. Now we're going to send it down to Eddie, who has more on the field.
I just spoke to Sigma Nu after their crash. They said they're pretty much done from this race. They tried to catch up, but accumulated too many penalties trying to catch up after their crash. Also, I spoke to the coaches for Fidel. They say they still got a really good shot in this race. They're waiting to hear back from the medical tent on Sasha, one of their better riders, but we'll have to see where that goes and where that develops. Back to you guys.
So already those, thank you, Eddie, for that. already those crashes early on knocking some teams out of this race.
Yeah, Josh, I'm looking on our results, and officially in that main group, just separated by 2 seconds, we've got 20 teams. So that means of our 33-team field, 13 are off the back or scattered somewhere else trying to chase, and it's going to be a hard day to chase in that sort of wind, just solo out there trying to get bridge back to the main group as we see the Fijis coming down the front stretch in that candy striped jersey.
Now SAE moving to the inside. It looks like they'll, around turn 1, take the lead. Yeah, but we have seen a lot of teams right there share the lead early in this race between Delta Chi, Fiji, SAE has been up there as well.
And something that's interesting, I quite frankly don't think that the cutter rider, Eric Schwedlin, has exchanged yet. He, at 23 laps in, this is a really big set, something that you want to see if you're trying to eat a lot of laps and keep their sprinter, Nick Theory, rested for the lap 200. So very interesting.
Yeah, I guess almost a sleeping giant over there in Nick Theory, just waiting in that pit around turn 3. So a lot of teams sharing the lead early on in this race. Phi Delta Theta trying to get back in things, as Eddie mentioned. Sigma Nu looks like we'll be done for today, as we're kind of getting into that phase. 24 laps scored. A few more exchanges coming on.
Now it looks like cutters are setting up for an exchange. They've got a little bit of space between them and the field. That's Noble Guyan, a sophomore from Lanesville, Indiana. Again, cutters are pitted in that turn 3, last one on the back stretch. It looks like they'll do a bike-to-bike exchange. The pack just kind of hanging out and letting them go.
And so speaking of exchanges, kind of what is the difference between the bike-to-bike or just if you're exchanging one bike?
Absolutely. So you've got the bike-to-bike, which you saw the cutters do. Just as the name implies, you have 2 bikes. You set the outgoing bike onto the back line of your pit, and you're just kind of stationary. You make the tag, and then they go off. Some of our other ones where you just have the single rider exchange, you will have just one bike, and the outgoing rider runs up to speed. They grab onto the stem of the bike, and the other person hops off and they jump on. Personally, I'm a fan of the rider exchange. I think it's a little bit faster because the bike really should, if it's perfectly done, never slow down. But obviously the bike-to-bike is a little bit safer because there's no threat of dropping the bike at all.
And as Cutters is getting ready to exchange, we're going to send it down to Eddie, who has more.
Well, you mentioned that sleeping giant in Nick Theory, the sprinter for Cutters. He talked to the IDS after missing out, which he won, of course, because he's pretty darn fast. And he talked about his strategy in missing out, and he said he has none. He just goes out there and rides with, direct quote, balls. And we'll see how he does today, that sleeping giant, Nick Theory. Back to you, Josh.
Yeah, I guess that kind of race mentality worked out for Nick Theory, and he is definitely one of the better riders in this field.
He's very experienced. This is his 4th race. He's ridden in each of those races that he's been in, and experience pays off quite a lot in Little 500. There's so much that you learn through every race because it's just one opportunity a year. You have to wait 365 days in order to do it again, and he's got some of that experience already.
So how does that affect a team like SAE? 3 rookie riders, but maybe one of the best riders in the field in Joe Krahulik.
You know, Joe will have to really put the team on his back, and I expect him to ride a lot of laps today, and that makes it tough. Having a lot of laps in your legs at lap 200 will make it very difficult to contend in the sprint.
Yeah, we've already seen Joe Krahulik take on a bunch of laps at the beginning. We're now through 28 scored laps so far today, and a lot of teams sharing the lead right now.
And now to me, it looks like guys have settled in a little bit. It's becoming a little bit more comfortable. We've gotten the jitters of the first 20 laps out of the way. We've gotten some of those wrecks out of the way, and now the teams that we expect to be there are still there. And now as we get to some of those 2nd and 3rd riders, it'll probably slow down a little bit and continue to race.
And it looks like SAE going to get ready to exchange once again. SAE, obviously the pole team today, led by Joe Kahulik, who we have mentioned quite a bit today. Is that CSF making an exchange? And it looks like a rider down right there.
And that just was a rub of a wheel on the front stretch there, Kappa Sigma. And luckily, you know, he rubbed the wheel of the rider in front of him, didn't necessarily take anyone else down with him, and he got right back up and was good to go. So, you know, hopefully he can catch the back of that pack and be able to sit in and be okay for the rest of the race.
So as we look at this pack right now, as they're coming close here to turn 3, is this kind of the size of pack we expected? Is this, I guess, normal, would you say?
You know, again, I think having those 13 teams eliminated and off the back from those pre-race wrecks, I think that is going to be helpful. That's narrowing it down quite a bit. As we got Sigma Chi coming in on the backstretch and Sig Ep as well on the front stretch doing their second exchanges.
And BKB and SAE also readying to make exchanges here.
You saw the BKB rider. He was on the wheel of the Sig Ep, and he kind of followed that out, but he elected to not do the exchange, so was looking to get maybe a little bit of a bigger gap.
And here we go. We got a good burn here coming from an SAE rider right here. What's the key in those burnouts to kind of get extended from the pack?
Oh, and an ugly exchange on the SAEs. It looks like now on the bike for them is Nolan Filchak, sophomore from Mishawaka, Indiana, riding in his first race. So as a rookie, that's very nerve-wracking to have your first time riding. Yeah, first time riding, and you make a mistake right off the bat. So he'll have to do a little bit of catching, but he'll get right back up, no problem.
And now it looks like Black Key Bulls trying to do the same thing. Another burnout here coming around turn 4.
And it looks like Kevin Mangle is going to trade off the bike to Noah Voiles from Newburgh, Indiana.
And it looks like we have an issue with Kappa Sigma. They're running a bike here just past the starting line. And they are now trying to get back in here into the back of the pack.
And that was just a great exchange by the BKBs. That's what you want to see. And to answer your question from earlier, you really want to establish that gap where you have maybe a half straightaway to a straightaway, because every time you do an exchange, it's going to be anywhere from 4 to 8 seconds. So you want to filter right back into the group and not have your teammate that's getting on have to do a lot of extra work and burn those matches to get there.
So there goes the 9th team, 3PH, led by Reed Wilson, but on the bike right now is Matthew Thompson. He's Ben Thompson, a freshman out of Columbus, Indiana.
Pair of brothers on the team, which is pretty cool. One of the fun things to see. Lots of just family connections, not just brothers in the race today, but then also multi-year generational families that you have your grandpa, your dad that rode in it, and you get to come as a student and compete in the race yourself.
I was actually talking with Sam Anderson of Sig Ep, and I guess kind of a few years ago, or when he started to ride, he found out a great uncle had actually rode in the race. So
and he had no idea?
He had really no idea, yeah.
In the Sig Ep's pit today is Brian Gavette, their coach. He was a former rider for Phi Delta Theta in the 1980s. Works up in Indianapolis for one of our corporate sponsors, SRAM. His son, Ben Gavette, is the student coach in their pit today, also a member of the Sigma Phi Epsilon fraternity.
I also believe he's the president of Riders Council as well, so very involved in this race.
Indeed. And Riders Council are a group of senior leaders within the riding community, really do a lot of organization and teaching of the new riders that come in. They are leaders within the race and really help to make the races good and safe for everyone.
So as we look at this pack right now, it looks like it's 3 or 4 deep. Does that make for a fast race or more of a slower race?
No, absolutely. So right now they're just kind of going at a pedestrian pace, looking around, and when it gets bunched up like that, when you have 3-4 wide, it is certainly going to be slow. When you see it strung out in single file, that's when they're really ripping down the front and back stretch, and it's a fast, quick race.
So a little bit of a slower race then right now.
You know, at this point we're getting into our 3 and 4 riders, and so, you know, fitness-wise they're probably a little bit more down on the depth chart. So that's why the race is going to be kind of slower, because you know, our main players, the big boys, aren't necessarily in there at this point.
And right now in front for Sig Ep is Daniel Cox. We saw that wonderful piece on him in the pre-race. And he is definitely racing with a purpose today.
Bears were leading there. Let's make that signify epsilon.
It looks like we're going to get an exchange here from Forrest as they are ready right past the start-finish line.
They'll probably wait to go around again.
Waiting
again,
for that burn.
Kind of, yeah, that goal. You want to have that gap a little bit. Very impressive. Delta Chi still on the front. They're that team a couple meters up the road, qualifying from the 30th spot. So we've got the Dixie Highway possible contender right there, coming from the farthest back to the front at the end of the race.
Abel Barrera Durante Jr. out of Brownsville, Texas, in his third race was actually kind of up there, apart from his teammates in terms of ITT times.
And Abel's another senior leader. He's on our Little 500 Riders Council. Provides a lot of good insight and very helpful for that group.
As we see Andrew Goodwin come onto the bike for Bears out of that 11th spot. Riley Figg, one of the leaders of that team. And Bears is an interesting story. They were formerly Wright Cycling, but now it is just Forrest as the only Residence Hall team. And now it is, I guess, Mother Bears Cycling, if you will, for that Bears team in the 11th spot.
Coached by former cutter rider Chris Wojtowicz. He was a champion of the Little 500 in 2000, and he knows how to race. So he's got some good knowledge in the pit for that team. And again, one of their key riders, Riley Figg, we're looking for a possible sprint contender.
And speaking of Bears, let's go learn out a little bit more about that team.
When the Wright Cycling team found out last fall they would not receive funding from the dorm, Little 500 team quickly sought out new ways to be financed, landing on a very popular Bloomington restaurant.
First of all, they were cutting funding, so we had to find a way to ride in the race and pay for the bikes and register. And the other reason is we just wanted to find something that really represented us better, a local Bloomington business. So Mother Bears was really an easy option.
With increased pressure from Wright to recruit from the dorm, the team feels it has a better fit with its new sponsor, Mother Bears. Thus, Bears Cycling was born.
With Wright, like again, we had no affiliation personally with the dorm, but whereas Mother Bears, you know, it's a great Bloomington business, and for three of us, me, Riley, and Andrew, we're all townies.
The three townies all rode in the race last year. Despite getting in an early wreck and finishing 14th, the Bears feel confident they will have a successful 2017 race.
I think realistically, if we're on the lead lap there with everybody else, I definitely think we're capable of pulling it off.
The Bears ultimately want to make their hometown proud.
Yeah, I'd say that we are Bloomington's Little 500 team.
So Bears is a team that could potentially, out of the 11th spot, make some moves in this race today.
You know, they certainly have experience. Even though they have a new name of Bears and they're not Wright Cycling anymore, they've been in the race and they've been contenders. So we'll look to them to make it to the lap 200.
And it looks like as SAE and CSF are coming in for exchanges, we're actually now going to send it down to Eddie Cotton, who is with Ryan Romanesco of Phi Delta Theta.
I'm here with Ryan Romanesco, former alumni of Phi Delta. Now, what was your experience like when you rode for the team?
I mean, I was in the last three races, and it's, the culmination of a lot of hard work as far as, you spend time with your team, your alumni, the people that are really invested in seeing you show out well and, put out a good body of work. And, it's weird being on the other side of the fence and, hope we can be a part of our guys getting that same kind of experience.
Now, being on that other side of the fence, you're seeing how the team is doing right now, trying to respond from an early crash. How do you think they're doing with that?
I think they're responding well. I mean, you get your brain's fried when something like that happens. You're firing on all cylinders, and unfortunately we had to take a lap down, but our guys chased back. They're staying in contact with the group, and we're hoping to kind of hold that position for as long as we can.
Now, I know this race has a lot of meaning to you and all the riders here. Can you tell us a little bit about why?
As far as our team, Phi Delta Theta, it's the alumni. It's the guys who come back and who are so willing to give to you and make sure that you have that kind of Little 500 experience that they did. And with two freshmen on the team this year, I'm really, really thrilled to pass that on. And one of the people that really was instrumental in us doing that when I was on the team was Alan Smith, who unfortunately passed away in the fall. And we're wearing some T-shirts for in his memory. There was the moment of silence at the start of the race. And one thing we're doing as a group is beginning the Alan Smith Memorial Endowment Fund. And the idea behind that is to raise money for the Indiana University Foundation, similar to what Little 500 does, as far as both building up money for student scholarships and also, making sure there's a great quality race. And any contributions will be going towards bike mechanics that are working for the foundation, and that gives the IUSF a little more money to be able to put towards raising the quality of the race and helping working students. So it's the website is give.iu.edu, and what you do is you add a fund and you can type in Alan Smith. I've spoken with the IU Foundation, and they'll be summing those up, and it's a great cause. So
Certainly a worthy cause, and best of luck moving forward in the rest of the race.
Thanks, Eddie.
Back to you guys.
For that interview, another great story from this race, racing for a cause.
Ryan's just a wonderful personality of the Little 500. I had the opportunity to work with him as he was the vice president of Riders Council last year, and just couldn't say a bad word about anybody. Mr. Congeniality of the field, and it's so cool to see them continue to come back, continue to be involved with the race, and as Ryan said, establishing some philanthropic efforts to recognize and memorialize their Alan Smith, one of their key contributors that passed away in the fall.
And Phi Delta Theta was in that wreck at the very beginning in lap 1. We're now through 47 scored laps.
And now you can see on the front stretch, as teams are doing exchanges, it's getting a little bit strung out. So we're not more pack riding, just kind of throw in some fast lap times down, as we've got, looks like SIGEP just did their exchange.
It looks like we're getting another exchange as we get a burnout here.
And now Beta's doing a burn on the backstretch. SAE on the front of the group behind them, followed by Cutters and the BKBs.
So now here comes Beta as they are in that very far right pit there, just near turn 1. We were talking with them before. They actually they picked that for a reason. They kind of like being there on the end, a little bit more room to spread out there.
Again, exchanges taking place around the track, north and south and straightaways.
So as we keep going in this race, I guess, as it gets strung out, what's kind of the strategy in terms of exchanges?
Ideally the set's going to be somewhere between, again, as I said before, 10 to 20 laps, maybe for the first 100. And then as we get towards the end and get into the second half of the race, things get more strategic. You do a little less grunting and a little more thinking in the second half. And right now I think that the guys are doing, it's pretty leisurely. They're not doing too hard. They're just kind of looking over and doing their fair share of the work on the front, keeping the race at a pretty modest pace.
And we are now a quarter of the way done with this race. We are through 50 scored laps here at Bill Armstrong Stadium. Josh Eastern, Jordan Bailey, and Eddie Cotton here with you. Another great day for racing. As we thought we were going to get some rain today, but now it looks like the sun's trying to break out a little bit.
I love it. And now you can see almost all but maybe about 3 are back in that group. So this is where it kind of gets dangerous again, because you've got some of those teams that are lapped down, 1 or 2 laps down. You have the leaders in there, and just trying to keep it a safe race and continue to ride and be at the front is where the smart move is.
How important is that blue and orange flag right there to just kind of get riders out of the way to keep the pack, I guess, kind of safe?
Right, so you'll notice all around the track on the inside on the field, we've got our judges that are on headset. We've got turn stewards in each of the turns on those towers, and they're all communicating with each other. So they're more or less the officials of the race, and they're calling it. Jonathan Jonathan Purvis is our chief steward this year in his second year, and he calls the race. And so he's alerting to the judges down on the field, hey, the pink team with white stripes, they're a lap down. They need to move to the outside, so they'll audibly tell them that, and it keeps it safe racing for our leaders.
And you used to be the race director. What's the role of the race director on race day during a race?
Absolutely. The staff of the Student Foundation, again, it's kind of like the riders, as we see SAE, a little bit of a rough exchange, but he got it off all right. Just like the riders, they're putting in so much time throughout the year building up that fitness to peak today. They want to have the best race that they can today. The staff of the Student Foundation, the student volunteers, they are putting in all this time and energy planning out and transforming during the week of Little 500 Bill Armstrong Stadium into the Little 500 Stadium. As race director, I was always in the press box with our PA announcer, Chuck Crabb, monitoring the timing and scoring, and I was on headset with Jonathan, so good vantage point. Being outside on top of the press box, it's a little bit windy up here, so inside is always better because it's climate controlled.
And now we want to welcome our first guest up here. I guess we had Sam Beisizen before this. Now we want to welcome Zach Osterman. He writes for the Indy Star for IU football and basketball and any other IU events that I guess happen. So Zach, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. It's always a good day on race day.
And let's not forget, Zach himself is a Little 500 rider. So
I am. Fall of 2008, I'm riding back in from Morgan Monroe State Forest. It's late October, very cold. I'm all bundled up, and this kid pulls up next to me in a jersey and shorts. That's it. It had to be 50 degrees outside. And we're talking, nice kid, says he's from northern Indiana, says he's a triathlete, wants to get into riding Little 5. And then we come up to Firehouse Hill on the north side of Bloomington, and we start going up, and he just blows me off his tail. And I mean, this is my third year riding, and I was never great, but I was solid. I mean, I was good enough to race 4 years, and he just leaves me behind. We get to the top of the hill, and I'm like, hey man, I'd like to talk to you about joining Sigma Alpha Mu. And then I get home. By about 9 o'clock that night, I'm running a fever of like 103. I slept the next 4 days. Rush ended, and Jordan Bailey joined Black Key Bulls. So.
But Zach went on to have a great race that year. The Sammies, they were the pole team of 2008 in just an ugly race. It was 40 degrees and practically snowing and windy and just terrible conditions.
It sleeted that day.
Yeah, not fun. So it looks like, we've got the sun out here. That's beautiful whenever the sun can peek out. You at least are warm inside with all the clothes you have on.
I'm just curious. This wind is blowing down into the front stretch.
Yeah, we've talked about that
Normally
a
into the
little.
back stretch. It sounds like a small thing, but if you're not used to it, I mean, what's it going to look like late in the race?
And another wreck here in turn 4.
I don't think
that
any
is
of our
6 turns down.
Got caught up in that, though.
Acacia was in there. They were in another wreck earlier. Kappa Sigma as well.
Might be Sigma Nu. I think
that's Phi Delta Theta as well. So their
day
second could
wreck.
be over.
Yeah, jeez.
So AE Pi as well. And it looks like they need some assistance. That Phi Del rider right there.
Zach, that was very fortuitous, talking about the wind again. That was right in turn 4, so as the leaders come out of turn 4 and they get hit with that headwind, the back of the pack is going to bunch up and slow down, and we see another wreck. Oh, my goodness.
And Black Key Bulls just avoids that. That was a great job there
for
the
Betas, and it looks like our number 10 team, Jet Black, and the bikes are, oh, my gosh. The bikes just got tangled up. Yeah, jeez. Oh, wow.
Well,
never a good sight.
It's just what you're not used to. Like, you spend all spring with the wind coming down the backstretch. You brace yourself going into turn 2. You always feel like you're going to get that push coming out of turn 4. And if it's suddenly reversed, it can mess with you, especially as you get into this part of the race where I think, at least for me mentally, about lap 60, lap 70, it was really when it started to kind of be more mental than physical, and you just started to kind of get into the slog of the race.
Yep, and we can see a replay of that wreck, and the BKBs just narrowly missed that. Great bike handling by Charlie Hammond to avoid that wreck and keep themselves in contention. Jet Black, despite not being Delta Tau Delta this year, same guys, same roster from last year, sans Luke Tormelin, they're going to have their work cut out for them to catch back up to that main group in this win today. They're about a half lap down now. Also, Beta was that was the other team that was there. They qualified in our front row.
So Beta just trying to get out of that. It looked like he was kind of dragging the bike of Jet Black right there. But now they're trying to get back in this thing. Zach Osterman is still here with us. Zach, you were a part of One Day in April. Can you just kind of explain how that all came to be and what your role in that documentary was?
Well, I had a pretty small role, a supporting role.
You have an IMDb page.
I guess that's true. I do have an IMDb
That makes
page.
all the difference. That makes all the difference.
You know, it's a documentary that was entirely filmed, staged, planned, and executed by former IU students, all of whom I think at different points had covered the race as photographers and things like that for the IDS and others. And it really, at least to me, I think a lot of people, I mean, Little 500 is a well-known race just in the cycling community in the United States. But I don't think a lot of people really appreciate how seriously it's taken, how much sacrifice riders put into it, and just kind of how lonely and boring and mentally and emotionally taxing all of the year-long preparation can be. And what I really liked, and part of the reason I was honored to be a part of it, I wound up being the narrator. I guess you could call it narrator. I'm not sure exactly how you described that role, but was just that I felt like it got at everything but race day. And it's so easy to explain race day to people. You just bring them out here, you show it to them, they understand. It's not really easy to explain to them everything else that goes into it for the teams that really do commit. Summer, fall, winter, spring, just go all the way through. And I thought that One Day in April really captured that very, very well.
And Jordan, you even played a big role in that.
I had the hard job of playing myself. Very cool. Tom Miller, great friend of mine. So it's very cool to see him come back and just be so passionate. He was actually a photographer for the Indiana Daily Student, the newspaper here, as a student. So we were actually in school together, and he came after he worked on the Obama campaign and had done that, very successful, and then comes back to Bloomington, has a little bit of time to kill, so he puts this documentary feature-length film together, and it went on to enter in some pretty fun film festivals and did quite well. And as Zach said, just an excellent representation of the work that these students we're at IU. Lots of Big Ten school, lots of student athletes are on scholarship, but all of these guys out here racing today, they put in 10, 20 hours a week throughout the year just for this one race, and they don't get paid for it. It's all about just the glory of being in it and being represented, your fraternity, your residence hall, the team that you're racing for.
And Zach, you live in Bloomington year-round. You cover IU. What does this day mean? It's not really. It's I guess a glorified intramural sport when it comes down to it.
Yeah, and yet, Jordan points out. I mean, Tom Miller is a good friend of both of ours. One of the driving forces behind One Day in April. Peter Stevenson, another one, a longtime friend of mine. And those are guys who, I mean, they never rode the race. They never coached the race. They were never involved beyond maybe Peter worked at the IDS, Tom worked at the IDS. But you see the passion that it can invoke in people and inspire in people even when they aren't involved. And there's just, in journalism school, they tell you don't use the word unique very often because it means one of a kind, and there are very few things that are actually one of a kind. I've yet to find anything quite like this. The collegiality of it, obviously the tradition and the pageantry, but also just remembering what goes into it every year. It is the longest consecutively running bike race in the country, in a country where cycling, in terms of popularity, ebbs and flows a lot. And just the annual support, like you're guaranteed to drop 20, 25,000 people out here, and not all of them are going to know what they're looking at. Not all of them are going to be here just for the race. But where are you going to find something else like this? I mean, really, it's very special.
Yeah, it is very special too. Well, Zach, thank you very much for joining us up here. Hope you enjoy the rest of your race day.
Before you leave, despite being the Sammys went a little bit down, I think. Do you have a favorite for the race at lap 200?
It's hard to say. First of all, I have been unable to locate a race guide. I left mine yesterday. I dropped it. I mean, I do. I think you always look at two that I always look at, and I'm not just saying this because Jordan's here. You're returning champions. You talked about Delts have some experience back, but maybe not all what they had last year. And you always look at where that white jersey is, and it seems like the last 3-4 years it just kind of lived wherever Black Key Bulls lived off campus. They're in it again today. A lot can happen, obviously. You have to get lucky. Everyone who's ridden the race knows this. But I do like the race BKB is riding right now.
All right. Zach Osterman of the Indiana Daily Student going with the BKBs. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And taking a look back at the race, you know, a lot's happened. The Betas and Jet Black, two of the people that we mentioned in the open of the show, they're now 3/4 of a lap behind the leaders. So they're still technically on the leader's lap, but close to probably 20 seconds down. And it just as the main peloton comes out of 4, our Jet Black rider is going into turn 1. So they're one straight away from being lapped. And once you get lapped, again, as we talked about on a very windy day like today, it's going to be exceedingly difficult to get that lap back. Very few teams can do it.
Yeah, but we did see those two bikes kind of lock together in that crash in turn 4 just a few laps ago. We are through 69 scored laps now.
And that's just one of the luck factors as Zach was talking about. You know, nobody was injured. They weren't in the middle of the track, and those guys locked up their bikes, and it cost them a lot of time, but it didn't go yellow. So we continue to race, and now they're down trying to chase back up. And you can see down in the beta pit, Coach Eric Anderson, he is just riding in words of encouragement on those pit boards, trying to give him lap splits to his rider of, you know, hold on, just ride a tempo, try and get back into this race.
And now 3PH is out in front right now. Matthew Thompson, the senior, 17th in ITTs. But it is still for that team. Reed Wilson, he is their top rider. He's in the pit right now, probably readying for that 200th lap when it comes here in about 130.
And laps scored, just to go home to our audience, through 70 laps scored, we had 3PH, Cutters, Sigma Phi Epsilon, SAE, Phi Gamma Delta, Grey Goat, CSF, Delta Chi, and BKB through 10. So now that main group, it continues to dwindle. I last year want to say that we probably had 15 or 20 on the lead lap through 100, and it looks like we're down to 15, 70 laps in. So with a day that's windy like today, I would expect the race to probably get pretty blown up once we get to lap 100 in the second half of this race.
And with that 200 laps, I mean, that really, there's a lot of time for, I guess, teams to get back in it. So I guess Beta and Jet Black, they're still kind of chasing those leaders right now.
But they're burning matches.
Yes.
You know, these guys in the pack, they're, again, going, looks like just getting some lap splits on there. Probably 37, 38-second laps. And these other guys, in order to catch back up, they're having to ride faster than that. So it's much easier to go in the pack and be able to draft. So they're burning some matches making this catch. As we see our pole team, Sigma Alpha Epsilon, coming out of turn 4, setting up for their exchange. They're going to do a bike-to-bike, and Coach Dan Burns telling them to slow down, keep it clean. Dan Burns himself is a Little 500 champion for the 2002 Corleones. They just won in very convincing fashion, breaking away from the field.
So Sean Marks on the bike for SE, and now we're going to send it down to Eddie Cotton, the third member of our team.
I just caught up with Charlie Hammond of BKB, the one who got in that little tangle up with Jet Black. He told me what was really going on is turn 3 and 4 are not great. They're a little bit dusty, and teams are going to have to start to get conservative. So what happened on that little tangle up crash, it seems like a lot of teams were trying to avoid the pits. Beta got a little bit too close to the pit, caused that collision right there. But Charlie says he'll be okay. He'll be more than all right. He adjusted rather quickly, and BKB will be back in this race. But other teams are going to have to start getting conservative around turn 3 and 4 because the concrete dirt is not doing very well. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Eddie. Very interesting right there because it rained yesterday all throughout the women's race, and we thought that this would be a good track for racing, but it looks like it is getting a little bit dusty out there.
Cinder track, Eddie, cinder track.
And as we just saw a few moments ago, Beta did exchange over there in their number 2 pit,
and
as they are still
trying. I tell you what, I'm surprised 2 top 10 teams get tangled up, and they were almost 3/4 of a lap down. I'm surprised the field's not stringing it out now. Betas are hanging tough, and they're doing a great job and have minimized this to just about a straightaway. So good for them.
Yeah, they've really done a good job getting back in this. As Jet Black is still trying to get back in this. It looks like they are lapped right now.
Yep, Jet right there. That is it. Going into turn 4.
So Jet Black, of course, the formerly Delta Tau Delta, still coached by Courtney Taylor, many of the same riders.
Courtney Bishop,
excuse me.
So interesting, you had one team, you had both of those teams, more or less they had the same amount of time that they were out, and Betas are just about a half a turn away from catching the group, whereas the Jet Black guys just, I don't know, they didn't have the horsepower to be able to get back up there.
So Beta, they're expending all this energy right now. How do you think that affects them as this race goes on?
Again, I think we've seen it before. A good example was Sigma Phi Epsilon. In 2015, they got caught up in an early wreck. I want to say it was around 40 or 50, and they spent a lot of laps catching back up, but they did it. They sat in and played it pretty conservative the rest of the time and just only were on the front when they needed to. And then they went on to win the sprint that year in a very convincing fashion and in that 6-up sprint in 2015.
As we see Delta Chi, their exchange out of turn 2, they are really hanging tough in this race. They qualified 30th, but they've been towards the top here for most of this race.
Yeah, you gotta love that. Coming from the 10th row and mixing it up with our leaders. I want to say another one that has been surprising to me is the Phi Gamma Deltas. They have a very storied and historied program, a lot of race wins under their belt, but the last 2 years it's kind of been rebuilding for them, so it's cool to see them shaking it up and doing well today.
But of course, like we expected, SAE is still up there, and they probably will be all day long. Led by Nick Theory, Sean Marks on the bike right now. 78 laps scored here. And now we're going to send it to another package. The Little 500 races are a lot more complex than they might seem. Everything is organized by the Little 500 race director, Andrea Balzano. IU Sports media reporter Courtney Robb gives a behind-the-scenes look at what her job entails.
Many different components go into the makings of a successful Little 500 race, and they all start right here. Behind me, you will see the Wilcox House, where race director Andrea Balzano spends her day-to-day organizing sponsors, creating events, and working with students to ensure smooth sailing on race day.
Balzano got her start as a college student, riding on an all-rookie team, as well as being president of Riders Council her senior year. Ever since then, Balzano knew that she wanted to come back and be Little 5 race director.
The Little 500 had such a huge impact on my college experience, and I feel very, very strongly that it helped me develop as a leader and as a person, and it made me it changed me in such a huge way. I knew that I wanted to be here directing just because I love the race so much.
Since the winners of the women's race will not be returning this year, Balzano anticipates a very competitive women's race. She has also noticed about 15 men's teams competitively vying for first place and says it will be interesting to see who comes out victorious. But Balzano states there's more to race day than just standings and trophies, that it's what these teams leave the race and the track with that is so much more important.
When I think Little 500, I think community. The friends that you make, the memories that you make with those friends really do last a lifetime, and I think that can sound maybe a little cliche, but it is so true. When I think about, if I have a really, really hard day or a hard week or something has happened in my life and I need a support system or a shoulder to lean on, I'm going to call one of my Little 500 teammates. Those are the people that have been my best friends for years and years and years.
Balzano, the new race director, I guess, taking over for you, Jordan.
And she's done an excellent job this year. Again, she was the president of Riders Council, so I got to work with her real close when she was a junior and senior. She went on to do Teach for America for 2 years, and I ended up, my wife was offered a job in Atlanta, so we moved over the summertime and left Bloomington, and Andrea was just the best person for the job and has done so well this year, the last couple of months getting ready for race day today.
What was your experience like as race director?
You know, it really is a dream job. Just any little 500 rider out here, they'll tell you that the race is such a passion point for them, such a connection to Indiana University, and it was for me. As I mentioned, I'm a natural-born Hoosier growing up, so I grew up cheering for Indiana basketball and came here and knew I was going to race Little 500, and just had an excellent 5 years here. So it really is a springboard for future things to come, I think, out of Atlanta.
And here, as we are through 83 laps scored, we're going to take a look at a Blackie Bulls exchange just a few laps ago. A little bit of a rough one right there, as we're going to take a look at this one.
Right before we went to the break, this happened. So you can see the rider coming in for VKB exchanges, and they're both bike-to-bikes. And you can see that Noah looked over his shoulder and just saw what the line was like, and then kind of the coach got in the way. So they both ran it for a while. Luckily, nobody went down. And as our predecessor, Jason Sonneborn, who used to do the Access TV broadcast, would say, if it's a completed exchange, that's a good exchange.
Mm-hmm. And that was between Sigma Chi and Blackie Bulls. They're just 2 pits away from each other. Those are 2 of the favorites coming into today. They have both been at the front.
Now 84 laps in, things have gotten a little bit slow in the group. They're just kind of hanging out and looking around as coming out of turn 4. Looks like Jet Black, again, who they fell a lap down because of that earlier snafu.
And there's also another team, Forest, up there. They are in 3rd right now, that orange jersey. Not really mentioned them a whole lot today. They qualified out of the 4th position right there on the inside of row 2.
And Forest is a really fun program. Relatively new, only a couple years in the race as of late, and that's just a story you want to see. You've got a core group of guys. They race for 4 years, but then they continue to be invested in the team, and they continue to come back and help out so that these current riders see success on race day. So they have had a string of top 10 finishes. In 2015, I think they were 4th or 5th, and obviously they're looking for their first Little 500 win today.
Yeah, Forest, a 10th place finish last year. They qualified 23rd. They're usually not in that position at 4th like they were this year. Their best before that was 11th. They said the start will definitely be easier for them, and as we can see, they're out in front right now. 3 top 10 finishes. Their highest finish was 5th, like you just mentioned. So as this pack coming around turn 4 here, still a fairly wide pack right now.
Yeah, and again, just not going super hard, just keeping it an honest race. As we say that, of course, they string it out and setting up for some exchanges. Looks like Grey Goat in the orange, and 3PH on his wheel. Both of those teams are pitted on the backstretch. And it looks like the Figams, the Fijis, are following that out, and then they're going to do an exchange on the front stretch.
So here they come around turn 4 here. That's also CSF.
Yeah, they're looking second place Team Pursuit.
19th place finish last year. They qualified 9th in that race, and they'll rejoin the pack here. So 88 laps scored, just coming up on halfway through the 200 laps today. We saw a bunch of crashes early on, but really haven't seen much since, maybe just that bike tangle between Beta and Jet Black.
And now is the time you just, you've got your through the first rotation of your riders. You're maybe 2 or 3 deep, and you're just trying to minimize mistakes at this point, waiting for the second half of the race.
Fiji still out in front as here. And now we're going to send it down to the 3rd member of our team, Eddie Cotton. Eddie, what do you got?
Thanks, Josh. I know Beta's been a team you guys have been talking about a lot, trying to get back in this race. And I talked to John Heidman of Beta before the race started about their pit position. They have the second choice, having qualified second, and they purposely wanted that last pit here around turn 4 because it gives them an opportunity to have extra space on exchanges. And that's going to be something to watch because of how difficult this track may be around turn 3 and 4 coming towards the end of this race. So watch out for Beta and how they exchange moving forward as we move on to the rest of this race. Back to you, Josh.
Yeah, Beta, thank you, Eddie, for that report. Beta has 3 riders that have some race experience, just one, Colton Reiner, the senior, with nothing, with no races previous to this one. And Beta still, they're on the outside right now, just coming past the start-finish line into turn 1. They're still trying to chug back into this race, but they have definitely made up a lot of ground here since that crash.
And again, coached by Eric Anderson, he's a champion of 2013. He really was the kind of the foundation for bringing Beta back to prominence here on the Little 500. He's a phenomenal member of the Little 5 community, an Ironman triathlete outside of it, bops all over the place, all over the globe on airline points. So I want that lifestyle.
Nothing like traveling around the world with airline points. That sounds like a pretty good gig right there. As we see a couple of exchanges. Bears just exchanged here, and SAE is readying for one right now. Riley Figg back on the bike for Bears. Riley Figg was very impressive in missing out. He was second, 42 in ITTs, a junior.
And on our front stretch side, looks like the SIG Eps and the SAEs are both coming in, setting up for exchanges. And you know, I think that the SAEs have stuck strictly to the bike-to-bikes. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out later in the race. If they'll continue to do that, probably keep it safe. And SIG Eps, with their exchange, they actually have about 10 meters on the front group of the field, so very good exchange on their part.
SIG Ep has been very impressive in this race. They have been up front quite a bit so far today. Definitely one of the favorites coming in. 3 seniors and a sophomore, Sam Anderson in his 4th race, Pete Arnold and Daniel Cox in their 2nd each, while Ben Harris out of Indian Wells, California, a sophomore.
And as he came through, he kind of looked over his shoulder and saw that gap that he has, and he increased his pace a bit. So let's see if he's going to try and stretch this to make a little bit more of a gap, make the race a little bit hard.
That's Sam Anderson on the bike right now. Definitely one of their better riders, one of the best riders here in the field.
Gray Goat on the front of that group, and they're just, they're not necessarily looking to chase that down and do all the work themselves. Cutters behind them. Gray Goat in there too, SAEs. I just think with the wind, the riders might not be bothered by it, but it's hard to establish a gap with the flagpoles how they are with the flags and the flagpoles. It's going to be tough.
And now Fiji kind of falling back a little bit in this. SIG Ep now really starting to get away from this pack right now.
Yeah, it's almost a full straightaway. That last lap, he was turning 34.5 seconds. So our average lap times out here are going to be 37, 38 seconds. And as he comes down out of turn 4, looks like they'll set up for an exchange. And now there goes the pack, getting strung out. Beta's on the front. They might be due for an exchange. Yeah, good for them. So this is what we were talking about. Now the race is hard. The race is strung out. Everybody's working. Everybody's turning it over quick. And SIG Ep, they're not waiting. They're going. We have 95 laps scored, and usually between laps 50 and 150, you see it kind of lull and it's a little bit boring. But SIG Eps are throwing some fireworks, making it exciting.
Yeah, SIG Ep have been very impressive today, along with Beta, getting back in that. They were almost a full lap down after that kind of tangle up with Jet Black. And now here they are right back towards the top.
And it looks like the Cutters are trying to bridge. This could be interesting if we have 2 strong teams on paper, Cutters and Sigma Phi Epsilon. If they meet up together and start pushing the pace, 2 teams, that could be interesting. That could make the difference in, put some more separation between them and the rest of the field.
And kind of with that rest of the field is Gray Goat at the front, James Welch on the bike in his 4th race. Talk about an experienced team. Everybody has more than 2 races under their belt. Thomas Torvik, Brad Klingeli, and James Welch all in their 4th race. They're all seniors. 2 out of Terre Haute, one out of Fort Wayne, and one out of Vernon Hills, Illinois. So all around the state of Indiana and just outside.
And it looks like the number 2 rider of Cutters, Noble Guyan, has met up with that Sig Up rider. And so now they have the luxury of working together. You don't have to do all of those laps by yourself into that headwind. You get to share the pace a little bit. So it looks like the gap is about a half lap.
So about working together, I guess you're not technically like in communication, but I guess kind of
you're
what is
not
that?
necessarily in cahoots, but again, with the wind, it's just like drafting an IndyCar. You are saving energy by being behind the rider, and then we see that through the see that through the pack where they're rotating through, and you never just have one team on the front the entire race. They're always kind of trading poles and doing their fair share of the work. Now it's really getting strung out as teams are lined up for exchanges and kind of all over the place. So it looks like this is going to come back from Cutters and Sig Up.
As we saw Lambda, Chi Alpha, and Blackie Bulls just go into an exchange there. It looked like a little bit of a run into each other right there near the pits. And we are just about halfway done here through 98 laps scored, now 99. As Bears will be preparing for an exchange here.
And very interesting, Blackie Bulls exchanged off the back of that breakaway a little bit, and it looks like they put on Xavier Martinez, who's our ITT champion. And I honestly need to go back and look at the notes, but I don't think he's been on the bike yet. So that means, in terms of the people that are out there, he by far has the freshest legs.
Yeah, there was kind of some talk about who would be that last sprinter for Blackie Bulls. We will see that. We are now halfway through this 67th edition of the Little 500. We want to check out a trailer of One Day in April because we have Tom Miller up with us here in the booth.
Life and our daily walks are a race. And the Little 500 strives to be a microcosm of that truth.
In college, when you're in that moment, you don't find that ever again. And that's why people come back.
Today is the day, folks. It's finally here. 30 years worth of training for 33 men's and women's teams is going to be put to the test this afternoon.
I read the rule book like the Bible. It's there.
The best $30 ticket in town.
I couldn't believe that she was able to participate with that amount of damage in her knee, and she won.
You think it was worth it? Yeah. I'm never going to be able to be like the caliber of an athlete that I was, on the 5 ever again.
I try and blame the guy that hit us. I try blaming myself, but I found that anger doesn't solve anything. There's so much emotion in this thing, and to have your brother there with you is special. Mentally, I'd like to think that I was a little bit better put together than everybody else out on the track. Anger's a barrier. Pain's a barrier.
Little 5's a funny thing. You don't get a chance to do it over again. There's no race next week that you can fix the mistakes that you made the week before. It's literally all or nothing. I cannot believe you could look at that video and think that's the right call.
Who do they call out when they need them? Who do they give the bike to when they desperately, desperately need them to win? And that's me.
Looks like it is going to be Teeter.
And welcome back. Nice, of course, a very good movie there, One Day in April, and the, mastermind behind that is up here with us, Tom Miller. Tom, how you doing? It's Little 500 Saturday.
I'm super excited and glad to be here with my old friend, Jordan Bailey. Excited to be here.
So, just Little 500, you obviously directed this film. Kind of what went into that, and what was kind of the thought process going into it?
Well, this is, I think, my 9th Little 500. I, as a freshman at IU, like many other kids, it was, a totally seminal experience. And as a student at the Indiana Daily Student, it was the highlight of the year. We look forward to photographing it, and so.
And you had yourself plenty of P1 photos, right?
Yeah.
Of the Cutters winning in the late 2000s.
The Cutters winning many, many times. Yeah, exactly. And so after I graduated, me and a couple other IU journalism alums just thought it was a really important story to tell. We were also unemployed at the time, so it dovetailed nicely.
Don't let him fool you. He's a freelance guy, and he has an impressive resume working for President Obama's campaign, doing documentary work, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I worked for Jordan Bailey as the race director.
Tom says that the sequel to One Day in April will just be all about me.
It's you and Zach Osterman.
Yeah,
it's
me and
Jordan
Zach,
Bailey
and
and Zach Osterman. Yeah.
Zach Osterman was just wearing that headset just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, going with the star power. So Zach had nothing but nice things to say about you as he was up here as well. So.
Well, he was the real expert. We got about 50% of the film and then realized we needed somebody to help translate that to real people, and Zach was the right person for that.
He even got an IMDb page off of that.
Yeah, he's the only one. Actually.
Really?
Yeah.
You have one?
No, he has one. I don't.
Somebody's got to fix that. Somebody's got to call up IMDb.
Yeah, I think so.
So you're here today. You obviously live around Bloomington. I guess just what does the Little 500 mean to you? I mean, you even based a movie off of it. So.
Yeah, I think it's a really unique thing in the country, and I think that it's something we hit on in the film a lot. But this is a great example of, I think, Hoosier values. It's a totally amateur event that people just do for the pride and the satisfaction and what it means to them, and we as a community come out and celebrate that once a year. And of everything I've done, like Jordan mentioned, I've photographed President Obama on a campaign. Little 500 is still one of the most special things I come to. There's nothing like this in the world.
Tom, tell us a little bit about the filmmaking process. It was over 2 years, right?
Yes, yeah, it was 2 years, mostly because we started off, we thought we wouldn't have enough material, so we started following 4 teams.
Wow.
Which ended up being a lot of stuff, and we had incredible stories. And I think that's one of the things that's true about the Little Five every year is that because that it's this amateur event where people have to basically just give it their all. There's all these interesting stories about why people do this. And so a lot of our filmmaking process was just sort of sticking with the teams and finding those other reasons why they were involved, why they participated. And it was just, that stuff is special every year, regardless of the outcome. You can look at every team out here on the men's and women's side. There's an interesting story behind why that person decided to put the time and energy as if they were an NCAA athlete into something that is really just an amateur event.
The riders and the teams might change from year to year, but those stories are always in that peloton, no matter what.
Absolutely. There's actually another film that somebody's working on about the Young Pioneers team.
Yep.
Yeah. From last year. So
I
think
another IU alumnus.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of a great example of you could probably pick any of these teams and find something interesting to say about them.
The all Chinese Little 500 team. Very cool story. Just the kind of the culture shock coming as not a transfer student, foreign exchange student. Yeah, international student. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that what is also great about that story is that the race has been throughout its history a place where, from whether it's the women competing to ride in their own race or Courtney Bishop, Team Major Taylor, but there's always been this sort of place for it's a merit-based thing. You just come out, you train to compete, and the best team wins.
So in this movie, you followed around a few teams. Kind of, how did that selection process go of which teams you wanted to choose?
Yeah, there really wasn't a good approach to that. And later, when I knew more about the race, I realized it made no sense. But we essentially just said, what team has won the most times recently, which was Teeter and Cutters at the time, and which team had just won the previous year, which was Delta Gamma and Delta Tau Delta. And about halfway through the season, we realized everybody could get like 9th. And we sort of were like, what would the story be there? And that's when we really committed to this idea. You know what? It can't be about who wins, who loses. It's got to be about the journey and the story behind it, because you can Google who won.
Right.
So we stuck to that, and I think it was. You see the film. We had a wide array of outcomes for the teams, but that sort of mattered less than the trip to get there.
Just looking at the race real quick, Beta Theta Pi has worked their way all the way back. They now lead the race. They got in that wreck around turn 4. And now they have worked all the way back. So just what does it mean to kind of come back to this race and see it every year? It's such a big spectacle, big date on the calendar.
Well, I'd say one thing that makes me really touched is to see the media school kids running this. I mean, in a lot of ways, One Day in April was sort of
the catalyst.
Yeah, I mean, and we kind of had this opinion that you could just get a bunch of students. Our crew was a couple kids who'd been graduated for a year. We were the experts, and then a huge number, like 20, 25 current students. And so to see that, the production become what it is and have a sustainable life where students are doing this, and looking at the production that Galen and all you guys have done, this is fabulous and awesome. And that makes me really proud that this is, this will continue to sort of develop and improve and have more students involved with it. I just think it's great.
It really goes back to the mission of the Student Foundation of having it be truly a student-run event, and by having that partnership, obviously having Access TV broadcast it for close to a decade. Mark Cuban, IU alumnus, his network that he owned, very, very gracious and did it a great job for a number of years. But really, this makes all the sense in the world, having this partnership between the Student Foundation, Little 500, and IU Media School students. Practical experience for all of the cast and crew that's out here today, helping to cover this for all of our fans at home.
And it makes Jordan and I's job easier, because now we just get to come here and talk, and we don't have to worry about any of the logistics. I was a little bummed that I wasn't out shooting today, but then I was like, oh wait, I'm not responsible for this at all.
Right. Well, Tom, thank you very much for stopping by. Really appreciate it. Obviously, if you have not checked out One Day in April, definitely make that appointment television, I would say.
Awesome.
So
thanks,
100 laps in, before we let you go, do you have a prediction for lap 200?
I would say do not underestimate Courtney Bishop.
Yep,
I made an entire film about that, in a lot of ways, and they had a little bit of drama this year, but I think he has always impressed me with his sort of strategic thinking. So
he always seems to get his teams to the lap 200 on the leader's lap.
And of the races I've been to, it is not easy to predict when they're going to win and when they're not. So I would say keep your eye on him for sure.
It's a risk. It's a long odds pick. They went down a lap down just a couple of laps ago.
Well, I was talking, so I missed it.
Well, they got caught up in an unfortunate wreck, but you can see that they're battling. So they're on the front stretch side as our main peloton's coming out of 4. But
I was going to offer
to Tom's point,
They're in 15th
again,
right now.
Courtney is a very, very savvy coach, and he knows what he's doing. And if anybody can get them unlapped, I think that he can.
Well, Tom, thank you very much for stopping by. Enjoy the rest of your Little 500 race day.
Excellent. See you guys around. Thanks.
Josh, so let's reset a little. We 115 laps in, and honestly, our lead group has dwindled down to less than 15.
And also should mention, Xavier Martinez is on the bike. We weren't sure if he had ridden before kind of lap 100 before we just talked with Tom there. But now he is on the bike going for Black Key Bulls, and we want to welcome in Dr. Mark Dayton. He rode for Delta Chi Delta from 73 to 76 out of Southport, Indiana. How are you doing today?
It's a lovely day compared to what they said it was going to be.
Yeah, no, it was supposed to be raining, torrential downpour. We actually seen a little blue skies out there today. Just coming back to Little 500, what does a Little 500 mean to you?
Oh, I mean, Little 5, when I rode, was a way for me to be actually known on a campus of 30,000 people. I mean, why else would anybody know who I was? It was also a way to be really focused. We spent a lot of time on a bike, which meant that you had to spend a lot of time off the bike studying if you wanted to stay in school.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot of discipline out of it.
And your team, Delta Chi, is doing quite well today. They had a little bit of a rough quals day, and we're in that 30 spot, but they have moved up and are running with our leaders right now. So you've got to be pretty happy about that.
Very happy, yes.
Delta Chi hasn't seen much recent success in the last few years, so it's cool to see them on the lead lap battling it out.
Yes.
And right now we got Sigma Chi out in front, Sig Ep right behind him. Grey Goat is in 3rd right now, so it looks like they're going to come up on the inside.
I'm really liking what Sig Ep's doing. They're not afraid to be out. They're trying to make some moves. They're being aggressive, and too often I think that with Little 500 you can really overthink it, and then it prevents you from seeing the opportunities that are in front of yourself. And Sig Ep is out there, and they're throwing a few punches early, trying to establish themselves as the leader of this race.
We're through 118 laps scored, and it's been a while since you rode in this. I guess kind of how has it changed, and what is it like to see it today?
It's changed quite a bit, because when I rode, we were at the 10th Street Stadium.
Right.
10th Street Stadium had no banking. The corners were much tighter.
And it had a curb in the middle.
And it
right?
had a curb on the inside.
It had a 4-inch curb on the inside,
Yep.
so people would ride to a foot or two off the curb, so they wouldn't crash, right?
Right, and every once in a while they did crash. So
as we have seen today too.
It took a lot more skill to go around the corners back in those days. I mean, the crashes you're seeing today have almost exclusively been over here.
In turn 3,
Turn 3 and turn 4.
You got a tailwind coming into the turn. You've got some of your top teams that are exchanging right down here, so they're picking up the pace right before they're going into that turn. You have anybody who doesn't know what they're doing, and you end up with what you've had, several crashes.
And Black Key Bulls and SAE over there.
Looks like
really kind of racing for the top right now.
Lining up for an exchange.
Xavier Martinez on the bike right now, yes, he is on the bike right now.
Trading off to what looks like Charlie Hammond up next for the BKBs. Also SAE coming in for an exchange. Looks like.
So Black Key Bulls right there. They get on the bike now. That's Charlie Hammond. Joe Krahulik is on for SAE.
Now the Cutters on the backstretch lining up for an exchange, followed closely by Siget.
Looks like Bears will also come in for an exchange. Andrew Goodwin on the bike will exchange with Jake Green. So here comes that exchange from Bears right there. Maybe not the cleanest there, but he did get up on the bike there, so I guess that is all that matters.
Right back, so not too bad.
Nick Theory also is on the bike now for Cutters.
So
122.
we have some firepower out there with Nick Theory, Charlie Hammond, Reed Wilson, and John Hyman of Beta Theta Pi, and Daniel Cox of Sigma Phi Epsilon. All experienced riders, all with good fitness. I would expect it to, and you can see right now it's strung out. So those guys are they're going pretty fast and doing their work on the front, trading off.
So Grey Goat out there in front. So Mark, I guess what were your kind of best experiences in this race? You were obviously very successful.
My best experience probably was 76 when I was the rider on the bike at the end of the race. We actually had a very, very strong team that year. So I think I probably rode less than 30 laps total during the race.
Okay.
So it came down to a sprint. I was reasonably fast to begin with, and I was fresh. It wasn't really a fair contest.
What is that feeling like on the bike when you're coming for that white flag? You see that, and then the checker's up next.
Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, this is what you've spent hours and hours and hours on the bike training for, and I did some amateur racing as well. No place I ever rode were there 25,000 people out there to watch us, which is what used to come out to that track. So it was an absolutely fabulous experience as a bike rider.
Well, Mark, thank you very much for coming up here to talk with us today. Great day for racing here.
Absolutely.
We'll look to see if Abel can make it to lap 200 and give the DKs a victory today.
That would be lovely, wouldn't it?
Yes. Well, thank you very
Thanks so much.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
That was Mark Dayton, rode from
Former
73 to 76 for Delta Chi. And as we kind of get back to this race here, through 125 scored laps.
And we're down to, again, as we mentioned before, we're down to about 13 or 14 teams on the lead lap as Sig Epic sets up for their exchange on the front stretch.
Daniel Cox will bring his bike in.
Looks like he handed it off to Sam Anderson, senior.
So Sam
Fort
Anderson,
Wayne, Indiana.
We have seen him take a lot of laps here early in this. I wonder if that will affect who gets that final sprint at the end.
This penalty assessed on lap 125. Team number 10, Jet Black. A 5-second penalty for impeding.
So Jet
Now Forrest setting up in for an exchange in the front stretch. Still in it, still fighting.
Jet Black now more than a lap behind. They also have a penalty. So we get a black flag out here. Oh, it looks like there's something over there near the Cutters pit. And it looks like 3PH.
They had just done an exchange. I wonder if they had a rider crash.
That would be, and now we're going to get a yellow flag out here, so we will try to track down what that is over there. So we got that black flag for just a moment. Now we're racing under a yellow flag, and there are a lot of medical personnel over there right now.
I didn't catch what had happened. Like I said, they had just come in for an exchange.
It looks like they have a stretcher out over there, so something very serious has happened to one of those teams in the top 10 we thought could be there come lap 200. Cannot make out who it is over there. Plenty of EMTs over there, still racing under a yellow flag. We'll try to track who that down. Still under a yellow flag. 128 laps scored here. That once again is 3PH over there.
Yeah,
did not see exactly what happened, but maybe an exchange.
Or with that many people over there.
And it looks like Delt's got a penalty for it. They announced that just before the yellow flag came out.
Huh. I wonder, it might have, if Delt's was assessed a penalty for that, it could have been an impeding penalty during that exchange. And again, something not what you want to see with 3PH. They're still with our leaders, but going a rider down could be make it difficult for the last 70 laps.
And Jet Black is right next to 3PH in that number 10 pit right near turn 3 over there. So still under a yellow flag. Now 129 laps scored. Looks like we're going to get a replay of this over there towards the left part of the screen. And it was a bike-to-bike exchange. Oh, it looks like somebody got in the way just off the screen.
Of the incoming rider, I think.
It looked like it was a judge. So,
it could have been a mechanic?
It looked like somebody in a yellow shirt. Not exactly sure as they're loading the rider.
It could have been the Cutter's coach. I don't know, but not sure.
Hard to make out who that could be.
Oh, one of it. Oh, wow.
So maybe this is not a racer. It could be somebody who was over there in one of the pits. Hard to make out with all the EMTs around.
Yeah, so I guess not a racer at all. Oh, wow.
Because they came in for that exchange. It looked like they had the exchange off, but it went off the screen, so not exactly sure who that could be.
Obviously, with any bike race, it's going to be fast, and you have to be heads up and be able to look around and know where the oncoming traffic is. But really, there's no safe part on the race course. Here it comes from a different angle.
So there it is, top of the screen. So they get the exchange off right there, and then it looks like somebody's in the way right there.
Ooh. Yeah, I can't tell. That might be a mechanic.
Looks like it's somebody with Jet Black.
No, could have been a mechanic. The mechanic of Jet Black. That makes sense for the penalty. Again, because he would have been impeding the progress of the team on the leader's lap. Oh, it was actually Courtney Bishop, their coach.
So Courtney Bishop is being stretchered off over there.
Oh my goodness.
So again, wow.
You really hope he is all right.
We are still under a yellow flag.
A very influential guy that we've talked about on the broadcast already.
It's been around this race for a very long time.
Looks like they're gonna cart him off. And I mean, really, I was trying to say before we went back to that replay, you can see the pits, and this is good advice just for the chief steward will go over this in the pre-race, the final race briefing, and the judges say it over and over and over again. But really, those coaches need to be as close to that fence line as possible, and not out kind of in the middle of the track in the field of play. And it looked like what happened. He was just kind of a little bit too far out. It's so much close quarters with all those bikes and all those people and as we go green again.
Yeah, so we're back to a green flag as Charlie Hammond out front for Black Key Bulls. And that's been a tough day for Jet Black now all around.
Yeah, for sure.
As they were in that tangle up with Beta around turn 4. Now their coach goes out on a stretcher.
So here we go. Again, just hope Courtney's all right. We'll try and get word later and see what happens.
So 133 laps scored. We're back to a green flag. As CSF comes around, they make an exchange. CSF has kind of slowly but surely been hanging around in this race. They right now have the lead, followed by Black Key Bulls.
So Josh, with 75 laps to go, again, we're down to just about 10 teams, maybe a little bit over. And the last 50 laps is really where you see the fireworks. Teams are going to use all the matches that they have left. They're going to use those legs to go, and that's when they start throwing some attacks and punches and counter punches. So I expect the pace is a little bit soft because of those yellow flag laps previously, right. And they're not going too hard right now. But coming up, I think that we're due for some fast bike racing.
So when do we see kind of these coaches and with the strategy coming into play, getting these sprinters ready? Around what lap could we see them kind of come off, get their final break?
That's a good question. You'll see at probably the last 25 or 30 laps. That's when it really gets fast, where you're rotating through that order as much as you can and keeping the pace hot. And really the goal would be to be the last one to exchange. Yesterday we saw a very gutsy move in the women's race with Kappa Alpha Theta exchanging on lap 99. So they did 198 or 98 was scored, and then on the 99th lap they did that, and then did the 100th lap for the win. But I would say if it came down to a sprint, you'd want your sprint out on maybe between lap 190 and 195. Just let them settle in, and then be able to sprint it out for the 200th lap.
So we're still through 136 laps scored. Lambda Chi Alpha just had an exchange. They're kind of settling into the pack right now, coming around turn 3. Fiji also coming in for an exchange. They've been hanging around towards the top as well, out of their 14th position.
But I think I would really expect to see maybe the SIG Eps, because they've been aggressive all day. Maybe the BKBs, really, they've just ridden kind of a quiet, smart race thus far. See if they'll mix it up and again, throw some attacks, and we might have a finish like the women's race yesterday, where it might not come down to a sprint. As we talked about in the Open, lots of strong teams on paper, where they might not match up against some of our favorites for the one lap, like Joe Krahulik or Nick Theory of Cutters or Riley Fig of Bears.
We also saw SIG Ep. They had almost a half lap lead earlier in this race. They really pulled away at one point.
And again, just with the wind, they kind of dangled out there and never really got more than a straightaway lead on the group. Now it's pretty much all back together with the usual suspects of who we suspect will be there at the end.
So 138 laps scored now. It's been a tough day for a lot of these teams. Sigma Alpha Mu had a tough start. They only had 2 riders coming into this, but Sigma Chi has been up front. most of the day, along with Fiji. They're 1-2 right now, followed by Cutters. I haven't really mentioned a whole lot of Cutters. We talked about Nick Theory earlier being one of the better riders in the field. They're just kind of
it looks like he's setting up for an exchange right now too. I would say out of our favorites, I'm really liking BKBs and Cutters. They have ridden when they needed to on the front, but they haven't yet thrown any punches or any attacks. But I expect that to change as we get to the last 60 to 50 laps of this race.
So Cutters looking to do a burnout right here. Looks like they're gonna.
Looks like Charlie Hammond's grabbing his wheel. They're coming in for an exchange. As our.
Looks like SAE was trying
as well. They elect not to. That's honestly really good rider awareness, just to know Charlie Hammond didn't have the gap, because you don't want to exchange off the back, because that puts you just pretty far behind and makes the next guy have to catch back up. And now Cutter's coming in.
They're going to lose it a little bit of ground right here.
Yeah, so Cutter's kind of got the raw end of that sequence of laps. They exchange even with the pack, and now SAE comes around, and it looks like on our front stretch we'll have the SAEs and the BKBs doing a double exchange.
Along with Bears as well.
And again, he didn't want to do it. Too much lap traffic, so shows the number one, and he's going to try to go around again. And that's just the worst as a rider, because they had been hot pace for a while, and you're kind of giving it all you have to establish that gap, and then to have it kind of botched up with some not lap traffic, but with some exchange traffic, makes it very difficult.
Is there something other teams can try to do to kind of prevent an exchange there? Maybe trying to block them into the pack.
I mean, obviously you want to be talking with your neighbors, and hopefully get the laps off and get it going. But that's what we've kind of seen those last couple of laps. They jumped on Cutter's wheel and marked them, preventing them from getting a gap, and then they marked SAE marked BKB, and nobody really had that much of an advantage in terms of the exchanges that they were doing.
So getting a lot of exchanges here as we do prepare for these final 50 laps. 142 laps have been scored so far today.
Wind's
pretty
picking
wild.
it up. Yeah, we're up on top of the press box, and all of our papers are getting blown around. So I can't imagine. Again, they were saying on field level, on track level, it wasn't too windy down there. But bike racing is all about the draft, and it's got to be hard down there.
You can see a little bit of dust kicking up as well near the pits. It rained yesterday, has not rained today, was supposed to, but that has subsided. That, I guess, weather system has gone down to the south. So we have had actually a very nice day of racing, a little bit chilly, but very windy. You can see those flags kind of flapping here in turn 4. And we're preparing for an interview down here in the SAE pit right now.
SAE leading across the line in first position.
And SAE still looking very good right now.
Up there with the leaders, 3 rookies, very impressive, led by Joe Krahulik, our 2016 ITT champion. He's just a diesel engine, so.
And speaking of the Krahuliks, we're gonna send down to Eddie, who was with another one of the Krahuliks.
Sorry. Go Eddie.
Oh, hey guys, I'm with Andrew Krahulik, former alumni of SAE. Andrew, what's it like being behind the cage right now, seeing your brother in the race?
It's nerve-wracking. When you're out there, there are things you can control. You're controlling the pace. When you're on this side, you watch, you do as much as you can to help them, count laps, but it's a whole world different.
Now, what have you seen so far in the race that you've liked out of the team?
The teams are getting great gaps. We've had SIGAP went off the front, and it took about 4 teams to really work together and close that. But the fact that teams are working together is a great sign. It means we'll probably string out in the next 20 laps, and it should be a good finish.
Now, you and your brothers have a long history of being a part of the Little 500. What does this race mean to you?
This race is fun because it's the first time I'm not out there with him. This is his team. All 3 of his teammates are rookies. They started in the fall. So to see him kind of mold his own team, it makes me proud to help coach and to just kind of watch it from this side.
Perfect. Thank you. Best of luck in the rest of the race. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much for that interview, Eddie. SAE obviously on the pole in this race and have led for a lot of it as well today.
Joe Krahulik, a very experienced little 500 rider himself, graduated in 2016. Just such a cool opportunity to be able to ride with family. Another storyline that we mentioned. And their dad, David Krahulik, also an IU alumnus. Just that family connection coming back. And from talking to the brothers, I know that they also have a third brother who's still in high school.
Wow.
And I don't know, he's a phenomenal swimmer, and I'm not sure he, good enough to go get a scholarship somewhere. But if he doesn't and he comes to IU, I would expect to see a third Krahulik brother riding for the SAEs.
Yeah, that is, I guess, a little bit of a dynasty right there,
Yeah.
the Krahulik family. We also do have confirmation that over there in that 9th and 10th pit over there, it was Courtney Bishop. That went down. An ambulance has just left. I think he was in that ambulance. And we got that info from Zach Osterman, who was up with us earlier. So he's a reporter by trade, still doing reporting when he's not necessarily on the job.
Helping the team out. And now our group, again, it's dwindled down. So it looks like we keep dropping some of the teams that are farther back in the rankings, and they're not able to hold that pace of our lead group, which again, that's what you want to see. You want to see the ones that are in contention for the win, mixing it up with one another, not causing any accidents as we close towards the end of this race.
So through 148 laps scored, we are just nearing the 3/4 mark of this race. And still
they're all just kind of looking around, looking over their shoulders at everybody.
Bears and Lambda Chi Alpha up there along with Beta. You can't stress Beta enough. They were almost a full lap back, and they have worked their way all the way back into this thing. And they have led for a little bit here in the past few laps.
Beta's made up of seniors John Hyman and Joe Laughlin, along with Jack McNamara and Colton Rainier. All the first two Indiana guys and the other two Illinois guys.
Yeah, Colton Reiner, this is his first race. He's a senior, but he had their best ITT time out of those 4 riders.
Just that natural athleticism with the Beta Theta Pies.
Yes.
Out of that house.
And now here we are, 150 laps scored, so 50 laps to go. Still very much up in the air of who is going to come away as the 67th Little 500 champion. I haven't really mentioned a whole lot today. Obviously no yellow jersey. There was not one in the women's race yesterday. No yellow jersey today in the men's race. So we will get a new champion today.
With the Delts unceremoniously kicked off campus. Never a fun thing to see.
No, definitely not. So Forrest is up in front right now. Forrest has been very impressive so far today.
They're riding a good race.
The last Residence Hall team left here in this race. Wright is now Bears. So
it's been over a decade since we've had a Residence Hall win with Dodds House in 2005. So need to represent and have that come true today. Would come through for Forrest.
So an hour 40, coming up on an hour 42 gone here. And it looks like Forrest is coming in for an exchange right now. This will be a bike-to-bike exchange. And they'll rejoin the pack. They'll have a little bit of work to do to get back in it.
I'm trying to do some quick math, and we have an hour 42 elapsed and 150 laps in. And it just, to me, again, with the wind, it just seems like a little bit of a slower paced race. We had some of those yellow flags, and obviously the racing is what's going to keep it quick, but those yellow flags do play a factor. But the last few years, we've been kind of that 2 hour, 5 minute mark, more or less. So I think we're going to be a little bit slower than average as we come to lap 200 later on in the race.
Just to reset things a little bit, we had a caution flag after lap 1 here in this race. Oh, and it looks like Sigma Chi, a little bit of a trouble. They might have bumped wheels right there, but he gets back on the bike. And they will keep going, but they do get kind of push back in the pack a little bit. They're chasing it now.
And you know, Josh, I think as now we are 153 scored. As we get into the race, mistakes like that are going to be the ones that are going to add up. And you just want to try and minimize it as much as you can, so that you put your team in the position to do what you need to do to come out on top for lap 200.
So SAE trying to come on the inside right there. Looks like that was 3PH.
Yeah, now we've got a little bit of separation with Cutters coming in for an exchange. Those SIG-Eps followed by Beta, who they just exchanged just a few laps ago, and SAE's queuing up for an exchange themselves.
So 3 of the top 5 right there, including the top 2. Out in front here, looks like SIG-Ep is coming in for an exchange right now, along with, looks like SAE's going to go another one.
Yeah, go. And that's smart. You put, kind of follow, he followed that other rider out. He followed the SIG-Ep rider out, so he was doing all the work, and now he's really throwing down as fast as he can to really establish a gap, so his next rider gets on with a good lead.
Daniel Cox is now on the bike for SIG-Ep.
And it looks like the SAE rookie is going to be Nolan Filchak, who's about to get on this time around.
He was their 4th rider in ITTs. So he'll be looking to kind of keep them in the running right now. As he gets just out in front of that pack around turn 1.
Looking over his shoulder, and he's just going to take it right in the front and go.
Lambda is also looking like they will get ready for an exchange here, just past the start-finish line.
CSF still up there with the leaders.
CSF also waiting for an exchange.
Ooh, you saw a little bit of a wiggle of the wheel.
So here comes CSF. Just to be a clean exchange right there, bike-to-bike exchange. As a rider goes down there for Lambda, and he looks hurt over there. He's limping back into the pit.
Lambda and CSF still with us. They had very good quals. Again, as we mentioned before, CSF finished 2nd in the team pursuit event, so 15 laps against the clock.
Their 7th Little 500 appearance. They placed 19th last year, qualified 9th.
Bears getting ready for their exchange here on the front stretch.
It looks to be another clean exchange. So a lot of exchanges here in this kind of 150 range as we're at 158 laps scored as Bears now out in front.
Riley Figg gets on the bike. This will probably be his last set if they're trying to use him for the sprint. I would think that they'll probably do 10 or 12 laps with him and then rest him the last 30 so that he can be fresh for the lap 200 sprint if it comes down to it.
So right now we have 15 teams in the lead pack on the lead lap. Does that seem about normal?
Yeah, I would say so. And to do a quick rundown, that lap time around at 159, we had Bears leading, followed by Grey Goat, the SAEs, Beta Theta Pi, Cutters, Forest Cycling, Sigma Chi, the Black Key Bulls, 3PH, Lambda Chi Alpha, Sigma Phi Epsilon, Delta Chi still in it, the Fiji still in it, and CSF. So all of the usual suspects that we talked about in the Open, they still established themselves there. As BKB comes in for an exchange, Cutters on that wheel. He was glued to it, Eric Schwedlin was, and now he's zooming into turn 1.
That's Noah Voiles now getting on the bike. Noah Voiles in his first race, a junior out of Newburgh, Indiana.
And as we go to the backstretch, Cutters do an exchange, and there you go, the SIG-Eps with a monster of a gap. They followed out both the BKBs and that Cutters, and looks like Coach Gavette is telling him to go. He's got about a half a straightaway, so they're going again.
This is the second time we've seen this today. This also happened earlier. Daniel Cox on the bike right now.
You know, on paper they don't necessarily line up for a sprint. I don't think they want it to come down to a sprint. And so them against the clock, them against the wind, putting the others in difficulty. They want to win it off the front like Theta did yesterday. Be aggressive.
And are they going to come in for an exchange right here? It looks like they will.
I would say that after the exchange, they'll probably continue. And they will want to extend this if they can.
So a good exchange right there.
He's not looking over his shoulder. He's just going.
That's Sam Anderson now on the bike, Sig Ep's top rider.
He's
fifth
got some
in
horsepower.
ITTs.
Yeah, fifth at ITTs in the semifinals of Missenau. He's just head down and going. Great turnover. Just trying to turn it over as quick as he can and extend this gap.
How could you see his experience kind of paying off as we're through 162 laps scored?
Again, Sam Anderson, he is our the only champion left from that 2015 Sigma Phi Epsilon team. So he's been on a winning team. He knows what it feels like to hoist up the Borg Warner Trophy at the end of this race, and having 3 races under his belt already, being experienced in the other 2, very helpful coming into today as they're being aggressive and trying to make the race for themselves.
One of just a few riders in his 4th race. Not too many others. Nick Theory, Eric Schwedland of Cutters, Matthew Thompson of 3PH, but other than that, I guess a bunch of Grego, but still not a whole lot in their 4th race. So we're going to get an exchange from Forrest and from Lambda Chi Alpha.
And it looks like the pack is just content to let them kind of be on the front there. It's about a straightaway as the camera pulls back. The pack is coming out of turn 2 as they're going into turn 3.
Is this something you think they can sustain for a long period of time? It looks like they're actually going to come in for an exchange right here.
Setting up for an exchange, and I would imagine that they'll try and go again. When I saw the Theta start it yesterday, I thought that lap 70 was incredibly early to do that. Here we are at 165, so pretty
even
similar.
Early,
yeah, even earlier. And I was proved wrong yesterday because the Thetas more or less kept it out the whole time. And again, there's not a whole lot of urgency, it looks like, from the rest of the field. Now the SAEs come to the front and are putting in a turn of speed.
And right now that's Ben Harris on the bike, the sophomore in his 1st race.
And just looking down at the lap times, with that one it was just an exchange, so it was a little bit slower. But SAEs trying to pull that back, turned over a 34-second lap, so the pack is kind of responding a little bit now.
So they're all chasing down Sigma Phi Epsilon right now.
But they do have the benefit. There are just kind of groups of riders scattered throughout the track. So for him, being out there in a time trial effort, just putting in this tempo, he's got kind of some groups to be able to bounce from one to the other, and it just mentally helpful.
Out in front of the bigger pack in 2nd right now is SAE. On the bike right now for them is Ryan Tufnell. One of those 3 rookies from SAE. Obviously it looks like Joe Krahulik is waiting in that number 1 pit right next to the start-finish line. He'll be there for the sprint. At least you'd have to imagine.
And now the Figam setting up for an exchange, still on our leader's lap. Getting encouragement from the pit. I mean, when you're out there working for your teammates and you're breaking the wind and just solo off the front, that's what you want to see. Just makes it so much easier when you're out there having the support of your teammates and the crowd and the fans in the back.
And it looks like Sig Ep is going to come in for an exchange. Ben Harris waved off the one on the last lap, and now here he comes. A pretty sizable margin from the lead pack. Here he comes around turn 4. So the pack might have a chance to catch up right here. Pretty good exchange right there.
And now Grego really throwing it down. I would expect this to come back right here. It looks like a little bit disadvantaged because you have those lap riders, those 3-lap riders. Now as the pace is very fast, all strung out.
And there they get past right there. Grego now in front of Sig Epp as Grego comes for an exchange, so it's back out to Sig Epp. So that was a pretty good burnout right there to kind of catch up.
Now it looks like the Black Key Bulls are coming around Sig Epp. But Sig Epp is, they're going to keep going. They're not blending back in with the field.
So Black Key Bulls now falling a little bit farther back. They'll try to get back after that exchange. 170 laps scored now.
Now Pete Arnold on the bike for Sigma Phi Epsilon in his second Little 500. Interesting, his brother was the vice president of steering committee last year, Zach Arnold. So steering committee, the group that helps to organize, and they're the senior leadership of the IU Student Foundation. Zach chose the IUSF route, and his brother said nope. Pete said nope, I'm going to ride, and he's a phenomenal rider, top 15 ITTer.
And as Sig Kai, and we have a wreck right here on turn 1. That's SAE.
SAE goes
down. All the other riders get around. It looks like there's 2 others down.
And
CSF also goes down in that,
they were with our
along
leaders.
with Pi Kappa Alpha.
And it looks like we're going to stay green. So that's
to get the rider off of the track
for
right
SAE
there.
now with their rookie rider, I think, was on the bike.
And we're going to get an exchange right here coming from SAE. There's a rider down there just off the track at turn 1.
The yellow does come out. Ooh, and SAE.
And a botched exchange there from SAE, so they just lost a lot of ground right there as we try to get a look at who this is on the screen. Looks like that's Phi Sigma Kappa.
And I think it was just a rub of wheels of one of our teams that was a couple of laps down.
And here is a replay of this. So it was after that Sig Kai exchange, and it looks like just...
No, it was in front of him. So, yeah, I think that it was just kind of those guys in the pack, and they kind of got caught up with one another.
SAE, credit them, though. Kind of like Theta yesterday.
Right,
they just get right back up.
So right now...
We'll get another look at this from a different angle. Yeah, it just looked like he kind of
wobbled. Oh, actually, it was the SAE rider that was the one that went down initially. Huh. I thought that he had gotten caught up.
No, it looked like he just kind of wobbled over there. Knocked over CSF. Pike was also involved, and that is Phi Sigma Kappa, as he is helped off, as he looks like he's in some pain.
And so now as our leaders
That's Jack Garlick, the junior out of Noblesville, Indiana, in his second race. So his day, it looks like, is done. 173 laps scored now. And we are under a caution flag right now. And now we're back to green.
Green flag racing.
So this should be in a very interesting final 26 laps.
Joe Krahulik back on the bike for,
and
looks like they're going to work with CSF.
They have some ground to make up
and that's
right here.
Always nice just to have another team. If you're behind, you quickly form alliances to be able to get yourself back into the race.
And check now the running order at the top. Bears is number 1 right now, followed by Beta and Forest. Black Key Bulls also not too far behind.
You know, if I were the field, I think that they need to string it out. It's a mistake, and Joe is very easily getting back as the field's not going too fast. And I mean, credit to Joe because he's a phenomenal rider, great fitness. But if one of the best riders in the race goes down, his team is in an accident, you need to make the race as fast as possible to eliminate him, essentially.
If he gets back in this, which it looks like he will, do you exchange once more before that final sprint?
Well, we're 25 laps to go, and there's still kind of a lot of teams all out there. As we come across the start-finish line, 3PH putting in a big turn of speed, followed by the BKBs, and it looks like Joe's just catching the tail end of that group. So I would expect them to exchange maybe 3 to 4 more times, depending on the team and what the personnel is in terms of riders.
Coming up on just under 2 hours right now, 176 laps scored. Looks like 3PH just did an exchange over there around near turn 3.
And interestingly, Sig Up and Betas are both coming in. BKB off the front a little, and Cutter's chasing. Joe still not quite to the lead group yet because it's very strung out, and a little just some small mini packs of riders as they're turning in some quick lap times now.
So a lot of exchanges here as we're getting ready for that final sprint. 23 laps left as
Looks
BKB
like
is coming in for an exchange right here. And Kevin Mango will hop onto the bike now for Black Key Bulls in that white jersey, Spring Series champions.
So our leaders are Cutters and Grey Goat Cycling out front. And looks like Kevin Mangle of BKB is going to chase that down.
So Cutters, a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and a senior. The freshman and the sophomore, no race experience. The latter two, the junior and the senior, Eric Schwedlin and Nick Theory, this is both of their 4th races.
And it looks like Grey Goat is, they haven't come in for an exchange. It looks like they're setting up for one right now.
So it looks like SAE has gotten themselves back into it. Credit Joe Krahulik for that. And now we're going to send it down to Eddie Cotton, who's on the field.
Thanks, guys. I just got finished talking up with Forest Cycling and their coaches. They told me they saw SAE's crash firsthand, and they think it all has to do with turn 1. Turn 1 is brutal right now. Teams are skidding all around, and the main concern is the traction on SAE's bikes after that crash. It'll be interesting to see how that continues to develop as we get down to the final sprint. Back to you guys.
Thank you for that reporting, Eddie. So we've seen turn 3, turn 4, and now turn 1 with crashes today. Turn 2 is still the clean one out there.
It looks, right now we've got BKBs and Cutters with a bit of an advantage. 10 meters back to them is Grey Goat. Bears a little bit behind them. And then we've got our main group of Beta Theta Pi and SAE.
And CSF has really fallen behind. They're now in 14th. It looks like they were just trying to come in for an exchange, couldn't quite get there.
Kevin Mangle and Eric Schwedlin on the bikes for BKB and Cutters, both top 5 ITTers. A lot of horsepower to be able to work together like that. Good for them. It looks like Grey Goat's going to make the catch. So our lead group is now 3. And here comes Eric Schwedlin with a big turn of speed coming into turn 3.
So 181 laps scored. CSF makes their exchange. It looks like their race day could be in big jeopardy right now. Black Key Bulls is maybe readying on the next lap as Bears makes an exchange here on the near side.
The advantage is about a half a turn as Cutters come out of turn 2. Looks like they're going to go for the exchange. And BKB is going to go right around. Good rider awareness on his part. He, again, elects not to do it. Trying not to show your cards first, and you want to be patient, and you want to not necessarily be the first person to make the move. Looks like BKB will come in and hand off to Charlie Hammond, their senior captain.
And looks like that was Kevin Mangle that goes down there, but he gets the bike off. Now, looking at these track conditions, there's a lot of dust out there. What can that do to these riders?
You know, if it does come down to a sprint, hopefully this fast racing right now with less than 20 to go thins out that group, so we're not going to have like a 10-up sprint. I could see it isolated between just a few teams, maybe 4 or 5. And I think that they're experienced, they know what they're doing, they'll handle themselves all right. But a lot of interesting things happening now with Grey Goat on the front, followed by BKB, and now Joe coming off the bike for SAE.
So probably be his last break, I would assume.
Big turn of speed for him, and so he's got to rest up, save him for lap 200.
So in terms of the shape of the field, is this kind of what we expected?
You know, this is the bike race. Here we are. These are sort of the attacks that we're talking about as BKB has pushed it. Now their advantage over Cutters is about a half a straightaway. And the whole field is just so blown up. There's no discernible pack at all.
Right.
And again, this is kind of how the women's race played out yesterday, right? With Kappa Alpha Theta just being off the front.
So a lot of the big guns on the bike right now. Nick Theory on for Cutters.
2016 little ITT champion for Theory. He was 6th this year. Charlie Hammond, their senior leader, is just throwing it down right now. Looking over his shoulder, coming out, and not even coming in for an exchange, just keeping going. And now it's almost up to a full straightaway. In Theory, he's got his head down and shaking. He doesn't look good. That's not what you want to see. You want to see smooth pedal stroke. He looks like he's hurting. And I think Cutters on our backstretch might come in for an exchange this time around.
So we'll see what they do here. This looks like Black Key Bulls is readying for an exchange. This looks to be a bike-to-bike exchange. Here they come.
186 scored. This will be 187 as Hammond comes across. Exchanges off to Noah Voiles. And we have a full straightaway here. This is serious. Gray Goat in second.
Sam Stratton really pumping right now, trying to close this gap.
Cutters and Beta are together.
And as you mentioned, Nick Theory kind of shaking his head. Noble Gaia now on the bike.
And honestly, so SAE is almost a half lap down. One of our favorites for the race.
They were the pole team coming in that green jersey.
You know, BKB, they put 20 seconds into the second place person for Team Pursuit. They like their chances against the wind, into the wind, on the clock. I see them as this is their move. They're not waiting for a sprint.
And Bears also makes an exchange. Caleb Langley on the bike as now here comes SAE. That's Nolan Filchak now on the bike.
Gray Goat does an exchange on the backstretch. Now our chase group is down to Beta and Cutters.
So in this next few laps, is this where we're going to see our sprinters enter this race?
You know, you have to close down this gap if you're the chase group. I would suspect that, as I said, BKB looking like they're kind of throwing their cards down, throwing the chips in, and putting it all in and gambling. And right now, see if they can win off the front like our Thetas did in yesterday's women's race.
So you got Black Key Bulls, Cutters, Beta Theta Pi, and Gray Goat. Looks like Beta is readying for an exchange along with Black Key Bulls.
So coming to the front stretch.
And that is Xavier Martinez, #1 in ITTs.
So here comes Gray Goat Cutters. This might be the catch, but fresh legs and the ITT champion, fresh legs are a big deal.
10 laps to go here at the 2017 Little 500. SIGEP making an exchange right now.
Yep, and see, Xavier's not waiting. He's not waiting.
Just going.
He doesn't want it to be a sprint.
You think Black Key Bulls just kind of rides this out with Xavier now?
It's hard. 10 laps is very, very hard. But again, he's not waiting around. And now it looked like they were gonna make the catch, but those others now Beta's coming in for an exchange on the front stretch. They're gonna lose some ground. Gray Goat's looking over his shoulder. He's hurting pretty bad.
That's now Brad Slingelli for Gray Goat.
This race is just completely blown up. 9 to go. Oh!
And we have something
Cutters
over there.
Avoided that wreck on the backstretch.
In that backstretch, it looks like it was just Acacia right there going down.
Just a green flag racing for now.
So that could have been dangerous right there very, very late in this race. And Xavier, here's a replay of this one right here. It looks like he just kind of trips over himself.
Very good bike handling on the Cutters and the Gray Goat rider for avoiding that.
Go into the infield there and avoid it. And it looks like Black Key Bulls is readying for an exchange along with SAE and with Sig Kai.
So they've got
Black
about
Key Bulls in turn 3. and Cutters over there on the far side as well. They're going in for an exchange. Here comes Sig Kai now. And here comes Black Key Bulls. Charlie Hammond now on the bike.
And it looks like Nat still about a half a straightaway as Charlie gets up to speed. Cutters down. They've got Nick Theory on the bike in the chase group in the 4th position. Betas and Grey Goat are our effective chase group.
And now Lambda coming in for an exchange along with Sig Ep.
And SAEs are they're over a half lap down. With less than 7 laps to go, this could be the race.
This is a very big gap right now. Black Key Bulls starting to run away with it.
Let's see as we
He's
come
signaling
across the
one
line.
more. It looks like they're all just going for short sprints right now.
Full straightaway. Coach Knapp is riding on that pit board every turn around.
So that's Grey Goat, that's Cutters, and that's Beta that are all trying to chase Black Key Bulls right now, and Charlie Hammond.
When we come around the start-finish line again, that'll be 5 to go.
And BKB is going to try to get on the inside. These are all lapped riders right now. BKB just kind of minding their own business. He's signaling one more. Coach Ryan Knapp is to his rider, Charlie Hammond. 195 laps scored, 5 laps to go.
And here comes Beta Theta Pi in for an exchange.
And Forrest as well. Grey Goat also just exchanged.
Nick Theory is in 2nd.
And now here comes SAE. Here goes here goes Joe Krahulik. A rough exchange right there. As now here comes Black Key Bulls in for an exchange. He's on the inside. This is going to be tough. He does just get outside that group of riders right there. And here comes Black Key Bulls. Big exchange here.
4 laps to go.
And it's clean with 4 laps to go. It's Kevin Mangle on the bike right now. Could this be it?
Theory.
Nick Theory is trying to be caught right now by Grey Goat and Beta along with Forrest. That's kind of the second pack right there behind Black Key Bulls. That is
interesting in terms of the rotation.
Yep.
I would say, Kevin Mangle probably. And Cutters going for an exchange. I don't like that one bit.
They did that last year as well.
Off the back a little. With less than 4 to go, you can't do that.
3 laps to go now. Black Key Bulls out in front.
Now they have gotten back up there to about a turn, half a turn.
So there's Grey Goat, there's Beta, and there's Forrest. They're all chasing Black Key Bulls. Kevin Mangle on the bike. Almost a full straightaway now. Coming around turn 3.
And it looks like they are setting up the ITT champion. Xavier Martinez will have 2 laps on the exchange. Very, very similar to Ryan Knapp's Alpha Theta.
Looks like they're going to wait one more.
They'll put him on. No, I don't like that. They're
Forrest coming in for an exchange right now.
That could have
2
been
laps
1 lap
to
too
go.
many. Because Xavier, this will be 199.
Lambda also setting up for an exchange right
Kevin
in front
Mangle
of Black Key
will see the
Bulls.
white flag. Kevin Mangle is going to finish off this race. White flag from Chappie Blackwell. And Nick Theory in 2nd, still about a straightaway down. This is going to be the bike race.
So here we go. Here comes the white flag. Black Key Bulls over around turn 2. A huge gap between 2nd place. This looks like it's going to be Black Key Bulls. The last time they won the Little 500 was in 2014. Here they come around turn 3. They're running away from the entire pack. Here comes Black Key Bulls and Kevin Mangle. They are your 2017 Little 500 champions.
Oh my gosh, what a race. Just pure
cannot
elation in
believe
the BKB pit. Coach Ryan Knapp with the double.
And that's going to be Grey Goat followed by
2nd.
Cutters and Beta. So Black Key Bulls.
Podium with the Black Key Bulls taking the victory.
So the fraternities have won it for the last 3 years, and now it is an independent team The last two independent teams to win it, well, it was the Black Key Bulls.
2014, 2017 Little 500 champions.
There's
SAE finishes down in 5th place and Bears in 6th. And the BKB pit going crazy.
So really, they just strung it out there at the end, and it was almost like yesterday, just a huge gap.
Almost the exact strategy from Coach Ryan Knapp. You got to give it to him. And I don't think that Kevin was their finisher because Xavier was about to line up, and he just stayed on there, getting hugs from his team. Wow.
So now, Kevin Mangle gets a bear hug from his teammates. And now we're going to send it down to Eddie Cotton as the race is complete with the red flag. Eddie.
Gentlemen, what does it feel like to have won the men's Little 500?
You couldn't ask for a better moment. We've been training all year for this. This is just the cherry on top. We've been all year just brothers.
It's more than the race. It's everything in between. It's these 3 guys and every one of our fans in the stand. All the guys in the team. All this in the den, we're inside. Holy shit!
Charlie, you're a senior. What's it like to go out like this?
You know, I came into BKB 2014 and we won the race. And then my first 2 races, 2015 and 16, we barely lost and got in the podium. So all I wanted to do for these guys is get a win and get a win for BKB, and it's incredible. It's truly incredible.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. You can just see the emotion down there, a huge mosh pit around there. And Jordan, as a Black Key Bull rider, have to feel very good about this.
You know, it really is truly a Little 500 story where BKB, in the grand scheme of Little 500, it's 67th running. BKB is new. 2006 was their first race, and I know that there were probably close to 20 alumni back for the weekend to support the guys behind the pit, and to see this come to fruition of now in their 2nd win, just very, very, very cool.
So Black Key Bulls, it wasn't even close there at the end. We didn't really get a sprint. It looked like they were going to go in exchange for Xavier Martinez. Instead, it was Kevin Mangle who finished it out. Kevin Mangle, the junior out of Valparaiso.
I don't think that he that he was expected to be the one on the bike for lap 200. I think they were going to go to Xavier, but he had the legs, and I think it was a 5 or 6 lap set that he finished it off with, and comes into the pit just with all that emotion and all that energy, so happy for the win.
And of course, Ryan Knapp is now a champion in the women's race and in the men's race.
His first men's Little 500 win. First year coach in the men's race. Good winning record so far.
So he is the first one to do both and win the spring series. So it's either the double or the treble, whatever you want to call it.
I don't think he's going to have to pay for drinks tonight.
No, he's going to have a good night along with all of those other Black Key Bull riders. Xavier Martinez, Noah Voiles, Kevin Mangle, and Charlie Hammond get it done.
Oh, an even better tidbit to mention for Kappa Alpha Theta, Evelyn and Charlie Hammond of BKB are dating. You love the dating aspect of Little 500.
And now we send it down to Eddie Cotton.
Coach, what's it feel like to have done the double?
I don't know, honestly, insane, unlikely, unbelievable. I don't know. You just never know how it's going to play out until it's, happening. Oh man, basically, we actually finished the guy that I pretty much explicitly told him he would not finish. That's how it goes. You just have to take what the bike race gives you. And for a while, I really didn't like the way things were going today. But then it kind of started to tilt our way once it got a little harder. But man, oh man, it's pretty insanely special. These guys have worked so hard for it and fallen short the last few years, and they deserve this so much. And to win like that, I mean, it's as special as it gets. I'm so happy for them. I would have taken one win this weekend because it's so hard to win ever. let alone 2. So I don't even, honestly, I'm speechless, man. This is nuts. Crazy.
Now, you've got one of the deepest teams, of course, but you had the #1 ITT rider in Xavier. What went into the choice in letting Kevin finish off the race?
He was the only one who could walk, basically. Everybody else was dead. Noah was throwing up. Xavier had just done a hard set. Charlie had really shouldered a lot of the load early in the race. So he really, I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to at the end of these races. If you want to race that style bike race, you have to, empty the tank for everybody. And so you just, you take whoever is left. And that was Kevin. I just said, hey, I need 3 laps from you. It's an easy on paper, but I bet those were the 3 longest laps in his life.
Well, congratulations, man. You've just won the double.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much, Eddie. You can just hear the emotion in his voice.
Napster pretty close to crying there. He's a very sensitive coach of the Thetas and the BKBs.
And as we take a look,
BKB rider himself from 2006 and 2007 on that first team. As we go up to the stage to see our 3rd place team, the Cutters.
Yeah, they got the 4th place finish last year after they had the pole. This year they do get on the podium. They get a 3rd place finish.
First time on the podium for them since I think 2011.
Their 32nd top 10 finish and their 34th Little 500 appearance, excuse me.
And good for Grey Goat, not one that we necessarily talked about a whole lot during the Open, but they got it done. They had the legs. They rode a savvy race. Were in good position all day and were able to stay with the leaders until the end when it got hard.
They had a
highest finish in history for the Grey Goats.
They had a 6th place finish last year. Their highest finish was 6th. This is their 5th top 10 finish in their 10th Little 500 appearance.
Founders Brian Holthouse and the Keel brothers have to be happy about that. The Grey Goat guys started in 2008, so this is 10th race for them. Highest place finish, gotta love it.
And they were one of those teams we were definitely talking about outside the top 10. They came in 15th, and they really worked their way up in this race. Very experienced bunch led by Brad Klingelli, the senior. So all
we
the
get
photo
some shots of the BKBs waiting for the ceremony with Toby Cole there. Toby is the godfather of BKB. He's an IU guy himself, graduated in the 90s, and just the biggest supporter the team could ever have.
And now here come the Black Key Bulls.
Just look at the emotion. IUSF director Tara Vickers giving them a hug, getting the lays.
So
Coach Ryan Knapp in the middle. And off screen, looks like.
And as they get this trophy right here, all the trophies in front as well. Looks like that's Xavier Martinez holding that trophy right there. As Black Key Bulls raise the 1st place trophy to the sky, the 67th Little 500 champions. That's Charlie. Once again, Charlie Hammond, Kevin Mangles, Xavier Martinez, and Noah Voiles.
And Josh, you gotta like it. It's always got to talk about next year. 3 returning riders for next year's race. Very cool. Raise the winning Little 500 bike, Schwinn bike.
And a big group in front of the podium, all wearing black and yellow. The colors.
The BKB hats.
But once again, a very interesting race all around. It was Cutters and Grey Goat that also get on the podium. SAE with that kind of minor crash or wreck around turn 1. That kind of bounced them from the...
That was, almost the catalyst.
Yeah.
Kind of because they went down and they had to chase a bit, and then that's when the race got kind of hard and got fast, and BKBs just were patient and they waited and continued to play their cards until everybody had exchanged, and then found themselves a little bit up the road from everyone and just played it out beautifully.
So once again, the Black Key Bulls are the champions.
Hoisting the Borg Warner Trophy.
There it is. There is the shot right there, the Borg Warner Trophy.
Their grubby fingers all over that sterling silver.
Each of the winners inscribed on that trophy.
And the BKBs will have their name on it for a second time.
Plenty of other teams also had great efforts in this race. Beta and SIGEP as well. SIGEP had a huge lead twice in this race. They could not hold on to it. They do not get the podium.
And just to do a full rundown, just to go a little bit deeper, the Black Key Bulls, of course, in first, Grey Goat second, Cutters third, Beta Theta Pi fourth, SAE fifth, Bears sixth, Sigma Chi seventh, Sigma Phi Epsilon eighth, Phi Gamma Delta Fiji in ninth, 3PH moves down to 10th, Forest Cycling 11th, Delta Chi finishes off 12th.
So thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. It was quite a day of racing here at Bill Armstrong Stadium. For everybody at Radio TV Services, it's been a very big production. A lot of work has been put into this. For Eddie Cotton down on the field, for Jordan Bailey, my broadcast partner, I'm Josh Eastern saying so long from the 67th Little 500.